Friday morning, and we're acting like it on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on a Reaction Friday. We've got 4 hours to break down why the Tennessee Titans made JC Latham their newest left tackle last night, what Rand Carthon had to say alongside Brian Callahan, what Rand Carthon told Titans Radio during Titans Radio draft coverage last night at Nissan Stadium, all of the chaotic things that happened in the opening 32 picks. Oh, and we've got 6 more rounds still to break down as well. 615-737-1045 is how you join us. We've got Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh is our producer. My name is Will Bowling, streaming live on 1045 The Zone TV. Welcome to Nashville, JC Latham, your newest left tackle. Good morning.
Good morning, man.
Yeah, that was a wild, didn't get wild until about the Titans pick. Well, I would say the Chargers pick.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of, the draft took a life of its own, including Penix going to the Falcons, which threw off everything. But no, really happy. I think when it's all said and done, it was kind of weird that yesterday we talked a lot about JC Latham, whether it be Coach Mack or the day before with Charles Davis of the NFL Network bringing up his name and kind of a breakdown of him. And boom, all of a sudden, Joe Alt's off the board and JC Latham is coming to Nashville. I'll say this, the more and more I thought about it last night, and then after talking with JC Latham, I'm like, you got to give the guy a chance. And I think he'll be able to rise to the occasion.
The chance thing is one of those that you have no choice with, right? Like, he is your guy. And I'll say
I'm
this
talking about more the fans, because there's a lot of hate out there.
That's what I mean too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Also, is you're 100% correct on that one, Kayla. Here's the thing: you got to ask yourself, unless you got about to petition the Chargers or called Jim Harbaugh yourself, then you and ask him why he took your guy and why that you took their guy. Then what are we talking about here? Because it seemed like it's two franchises that did the opposite of what you thought they were due. I'm sure some question marks, other than the fact that Joe Alt is heralded as the guy, right, as it pertains to his father, where he come from, and what folks think of him. I think you pick the number 1 and number 2 tackle, or you pick the number 2 tackle on the ranking scale, right? All offseason long, we've heard about Fashanu, and we've heard about Mims, we've heard about Tali Fuaga, and it seems the consensus number 1 across the board was Joe Alt and JC Latham. You got one of the top 3 guys at their positions. There's so much more that we will break down about him, but you got the right guy as far as I'm concerned, based on what all the analysts think, what your front office think, and what his tape suggests also.
And more importantly, what Bill Callahan thinks. This was his favorite tackle in the draft. I don't give a damn what anybody thinks except for Bill Callahan.
Right.
And if that was his guy who he thinks he can create into a monster on that left side, I'm in.
Yeah.
And we'll never know if the Titans really would have taken JC Latham over Joe Alt if they had both been there. I think these things always tend to come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
After the pick is made. Oh, it's our number 1 choice all the way. All along. We'll never know that 100%. But 6'5", 342-pound tackle who played in 41 games at Alabama over the last 3 seasons with 27 starts. He was first team All-SEC in 2023. Where he started 14 games at right tackle. According to Pro Football Focus, JC Latham allowed just 2 sacks and 970 career pass blocking snaps. That was through his time at Alabama. The big question is, can he move from right to left? Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, they seem to think so.
Yeah, they do. It's one of those situations where if they say he's moldable, he's teachable, he's willing. I thought a great little nugget yesterday, which made me raise my eyes. Well, 2 days ago was Charles Davis. We had him on. I'm sure we got that audio too. To whereas Nick Saban had plans and we're moving him to left tackle, but with college recruiting, what has to happen? The 5 stars and perennial All-Americans have to start early. So the best place was to keep him at right tackle and put Caden Proctor at left. And you never question if he was capable of doing it. He also number 1 tackle coming out in his recruiting class, been a 5-star, done everything you asked him to do as it pertains to what kind of athlete he's been. We brought this up yesterday a little bit too when we were discussing what Olu Fashanu has done versus JC Latham. Olu Fashanu ran at the combine. Did he run at the combine? He did everything you needed him to do as
Latham
far
or
as
Fashanu?
Fashanu.
Yes,
I'm just comparing one to the other.
Tested a lot more than JC Latham.
Yes, and so everybody still had JC Latham ahead of Olu Fashanu, right? A guy that's played on the left side primarily. You look at the accolades of Fashanu versus the accolades of JC Latham, and Fashanu is more decorated, but everybody still loves JC Latham. So ask yourself, why? Why do they still love JC Latham? And it's probably because he's a little bit grimier, meaner. He does well in the run game, strong as an ox is what I described him as in my notes, and has the ability to move from right to left. Again, the biggest thing that I heard said about him last night after we played his intro to the NFL, I forget who was interviewing him, the lady that was interviewing him from NFL Network.
Kelly Hartung.
She said, you've lost over 20 pounds since you left Alabama. And that to me was one of my biggest sticking points with him. Not that his weight is an issue, but the fact that he might have to get a little bit leaner to be quicker. I thought he had a little bit of a hiccup getting out of his stance, and that probably was because of weight. And he somewhat changed that around, and you can look at him as he walked across the stage. He looked good. And
he picked up Roger Goodell. He has the strength.
That's
right?
what I'm saying. He loses over 20 pounds in the pre-draft, man. You got a guy that understands that, hey, I got to be at the tip-top shape of my life, and he's done that so far. So that, to me, was probably one of the biggest things that I think you got to enjoy about a guy's commitment to being a better pro already.
There was a guy by the name of Jedrick Willis who came from Alabama in 2020, and he was also primarily a right tackle at Alabama. And when he went to the Cleveland Browns, Bill Callahan was tasked with moving him over to the left side. And he did just that. Yeah. And while it's a different player and a different team, I get all of that. But this is not new for Bill Callahan to do. This is something Bill Callahan has been doing for years. If he sees things in a player, and clearly he saw enough in a man who, by the way, played all of his high school years at left tackle, like you had mentioned. I don't feel like would give the green light on a guy if you really don't feel like he can be your left tackle. And like you're saying, worst comes to worst, he goes to right? But this guy is a player who is a dog. He wants to do everything he can to help a team win. He said last night when I asked him about that mentality, bringing it to the offensive line, he gave like a 5-minute answer on who he looks to give him the mentality that allows him to play like he's able to play. And he mentioned like going out there and I'll die on the field for my team. He was dead serious. This is a guy you want on your football team, and he's got to go out there and prove it. I understand that. But he's never missed a game. He played through a whole foot injury. This is, I think, a really good pick the more and more you think about it. And I understand these people that don't know if he'll be able to move over to left tackle. Some people saying he's a guard.
It was suggested that he could play it if necessary. Yeah, absolutely.
But you've got to give Bill Callahan and staff the chance to prove you wrong on this. And I get all the doubters, but I think when it's all said and done, he was the best for this team at that spot.
It's interesting, too. You talk about Bill Callahan. He has moved Jedrick Wills from right to left in Cleveland. He's also moved Tyron Smith from right to left as the offensive line coach of the Dallas Cowboys. After his first season in 2011, he moved from right to left in 2012. And Tyron Smith became one of the best tackles in the NFL. One comment in the chat on Evan and Beg chat on YouTube said, it was a reach. We definitely could have gotten him later on. Well, that insinuates, that you had an offer, and you may not have had an offer you felt like was worthy of moving back. You can't just build these arbitrary trades because in the PFF mock draft simulator, you've got 8 trades that you can fleece somebody on. There may not have been an offer they felt like was worth it. And B, the New York Jets also took a tackle. The New York Jets took Olu Fashanu. Why take the risk that the Jets at 10 are going to take the guy that you really want? If JC Latham is who you want, you don't feel like you have the ability to maneuver a trade and get back, then you take the guy that you want. And of course, I know it was at 11 where the Jets did take him because the Jets were ultimately the team who moved a spot with the Minnesota Vikings at that point. But Minnesota might not have been as encouraged to go up to that point. Minnesota clearly didn't get rid of 23 as well. They kept that and then used that to move up again. So it was interesting the way this worked out. It was definitely surprising, I think, that Latham was the guy sitting right there for them, considering Alt and Neighbors both were off the board, and that was the worst-case scenario we had discussed for weeks. What happens if Joe Alt and Malik Neighbors are off the board? Well, there you go. That's what happened.
If I'll suggest this though. So here's the thing too. If we'd have taken Olu Fashanu, right? Everybody would have complained because of his hands.
Of course they would have.
That would have been the issue too. Mm-hmm. The issue is everybody mocked, including ourselves, mocked for the most part Joe Alt's here.
Yep.
And then that plan changed. So here is how you look at this situation as it pertains to why Joe Alt when they already have Rashawn Slater at left tackle in L.A. He also will have to change sides too. So you're telling me you drafted a left tackle now that has to play right tackle. Do you believe that Joe Alt is a better athlete than JC Latham? I think that if you ask the analysts that evaluate JC Latham, he's probably a better, more physical athlete than what Joe Alt is. Joe Alt is more technical and has been heralded as this guy for a very long time. You love his longness. You love his range. You love the ability that he's been taught by his father to be a pro for a very long time. If you're going to dislike a pick, you gotta tell me what you dislike about it.
Well, I think a lot of people have PTSD for whatever reason because of the tackles that they have taken in the past. And then last year, the debate is still out there on whether Peter Skoronski should have moved over to left. We're still talking about guards and how these players should be guards. I'm sorry. Bill Callahan you guys, when he was hired, you guys agreed. Like, you're thrilled to have him here. Do you not trust him now? Do we not trust Bill Callahan now?
That's a great question.
I'm just curious, guys.
We have spent all offseason talking about how good the staff is. You can't make those statements and then the first time that staff comes up with a pick they like, you get angry at it. Willie on Facebook Live said it's the Isaiah Wilson PTSD. Yeah. Well, I guess just never draft a tackle ever again then. I mean, what? Did DeAndre Hopkins give you Julio Jones PTSD? How did that one work out for you?
And if Alt would have been chosen, it would probably have been the same thing. Well, some people said Alt wasn't the number one pick. I mean, people are going to have their opinions, and you have the right to have your opinions, but give the guy a chance.
615-737-1045 is our number. JC Latham spoke to the media last night. We'll tell you what he said about his visit with Bill Callahan. And we can take your reaction on the phone line, 615-737-1045. Everything you need to know about the newest Tennessee Titan coming up next.
It's Ramon Foster here for United Structural System. Here to tell you that when it comes to large home repairs, a lot of the time we homeowners, we pretend, just like draft picks sometimes, that we don't know what's going on with our home or see the warning signs because we're afraid of what we're going to hear. It's especially true on a day like today with waterproofing because it's raining and your foundation. It could be something big that needs to be fixed right away, or a small problem now that'll become bigger later. Bottom line is we don't know, and we certainly don't want to be sold something we don't need. What we need is a peace of mind. Just like my friend Brad here from Nashville on April 9th this year said he had two sidewalks that had collapsed on their campus and created a trip hazard and an ADA issue. He said he placed a call to United Structural System to get a quote on their concrete polylifting service, and the process was quick and the communication was excellent from the first call until the date of completion. Said their tech Evan came out and completed the work on their sidewalks and now within compliance, and the trip hazard has been eliminated. If you have any foundation issues around your home or waterproofing blowing in over your basement walls or just some issues with it, USS is serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Western Kentucky. You reach them online at USSTN.com or call them 615-488-7855.
Friday morning on 104.5 The Zone. RKW is brewed by 8th and Rose. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. 615-737-1045. That is how you give your reaction to the JC Latham pick. Last night, a player who was 6'5", 235 pounds as a freshman in high school, played nose tackle at 280 pounds as a sophomore before transferring to IMG Academy, where he would become the #1 offensive line recruit in the country out of high school. Coming up in an hour, we will talk to Brent Hubbs of VolQuest and On3 about the early days of JC Latham. Our normal visit with Brent will not be spent as much on Tennessee today, more so on what Brent will be talking about tonight on Titans radio coverage of day 2 of the NFL draft. A lot of these prospects from the SEC, what they were in high school and how they improved through college.
Oh.
So looking forward to that. 615-737-1045. Let's start on the phones with Dustin in Laverne to get things going. What's up, Dustin?
Hey, guys. Good morning.
Morning.
So my question is, this is not to be condescending in any way. This is just literally general curiosity. But I heard Kayla saying, if you trust Bill Callahan so much, and we keep saying that, I just don't understand in my head why we wouldn't have taken a Doomsday, the best available player at that point in the draft. Really, got everybody excited, created some fireworks. And then, if you trust Bill Callahan so much, why not just develop a tackle a little bit later in the draft if that is the case? So I'll hang up and listen, but y'all have a great Friday and a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you, Dustin.
Hey, Dustin. And I'll respond to that and with my thoughts on that, because I think in that situation, Dustin, a lot of it, and we don't know exactly what went behind the scenes because we have not talked to Bill Callahan. We heard it from Brian Callahan's perspective, where he did say that was Bill's, favorite tackle on the board. And I think when it comes down to it, if you can't have, and again, we don't know if Alt was even their first favorite tackle. It could have been JC Latham the whole time. Maybe we'll figure that out later on. But I think if you still have the opportunity to get what you think is one of the best tackles on the board, and then, yes, continue to develop them, why not? And maybe they were more willing to, do that and give Bill the best that he can work with instead of trading down and maybe getting an extra pick. And I know a lot of people wanted to do that, but maybe they didn't feel like the other tackles on the board, if you traded down, were as great to work with in moving to that left side. Or maybe Olu Fashanu wasn't the guy that Bill thought was really their left tackle. That's why I say put trust in Bill Callahan, because I think this decision was not made lightly by any means, considering there were wide receivers there. You're right.
To answer that question as well, we've given this stat that Mike Herndon tweeted 3 weeks ago about the full list of Pro Bowl and or All-Pro selections under Bill Callahan over the last 16 years with their draft round and pick. So at left tackle, every single All-Pro or Pro Bowler that Bill Callahan has coached. Left tackle DeBrickashaw Ferguson, who was the number 4 overall pick. Tyron Smith, who was the number 9 overall pick, who was a right tackle in his rookie season as a member of the Dallas Cowboys before Bill Callahan switched him to left tackle in 2012. Trent Williams, who is the number 4 overall pick, and at right tackle as well, just for the sake of conversation, we'll throw in Jack Conklin, who was a number 8 overall pick. That is why you don't take Rome Odunze in the top 10, and you get your tackle as soon as you can, and you give Bill Callahan the best recipe possible to cook up the best offensive line that he can. We've been saying that for weeks. I think a lot of us thought that guy was Joe Alt and not JC Latham. Things happen in the NFL. It's the beauty of the draft. You pivot to who else you like. And odds are they like both of them quite a bit. We'll never know what they really felt about Olu Fashanu as well. But ultimately, Ramon, you have been on the train as well as the former offensive lineman in the room, that this guy has as high a ceiling as any player in this draft on the line.
He does. Just look at the tape, legitimately. Like, look at the tape and just take time and see what he's capable of doing. My notes on him is this, man. 6'6", I think he's probably under 340 now. Lost over 20 pounds. Got to continue to say that, too, man. Played right tackle. Some suggested he could play guard, but he's going to play left tackle because your offensive line coach, head coach, and GM said it yesterday live. He's going to be a left tackle as it pertains to him. He's as strong as an ox, always looking to finish. One thing that you also need, too, he's a road grader. He's going to move bodies around. Again, look at the tape and just not the perception. The biggest hiccup in everybody's feelings right now is this. The guy that you wanted was taken before the JC Latham. But to say 1 versus 2 isn't a good prospect, I think is somewhat silly. I think it's short-sighted.
100%.
I think it's small-minded to say that, too. It is. It's legitimately small-minded to say that. And Rand even said that, too. You cannot control other players. You can't control other teams.
And we said yesterday, too, that even the worst-case scenario that could happen for the Titans still was not a bad scenario at all.
Yeah.
And we said that yesterday. If you don't like JC Latham and you don't like Brock Bowers, within the context of the number 7 overall pick, those are still 2 really, really good prospects.
Mm-hmm.
They are. And just to add more, too, man, I think if you watch him last night and listen to him in general, TK is what he calls himself. Yeah. And when you do that, you better be that.
Trench King.
Trench King is what it is, man. So you got to understand his mentality. I do believe this, too. Peter Skoronski's a little bit mild as far as attitude. He's mean on the field. Cushenberry's a little bit mild on the field. Finisher also. You needed a goon.
Yeah.
You needed a goon. Even if MPF is out there, I don't label him as a goon.
He's not that way either.
All right, even if Radens is that, he's not a goon. Bronsko, not from what I've seen. Tough, yes. Not undermining him. But you look at this young fella right here in JC Latham, and you get, in my mind, a Taylor Lewan mindset.
Yes.
Would you not rather have a group of guys walk out there and say, who's the big dog out of here? If it's JC Latham right or left tackle, guess what? That's a dub because a mentality and a standard has been set. And that does matter. Think about how you feel about Jeffrey Simmons on the defensive side. You feel a whole lot comfortable whenever T.R. Tart's out there with him, right? Because you know that Jeff's going to make sure that the goons show up.
I did think it was interesting. That was the initial reaction from Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, last night on Titans radio coverage, and he's going to join us at 8 o'clock. He said this is kind of like Jeffrey Simmons on offense. Mm-hmm. In terms of how big of a dude that he is and the nastiness that he will bring on the field, the mentality that he brings. You talk to him, he's got that same kind of personality. Now, granted, personality doesn't win you games. Play on the field does, but it does certainly help. And I do think it fills a need of a just personality type that the Titans also have not had in long enough.
And he just turned 21.
Yeah, he's young.
Young gun. And he's for that age and for, you have to grow up at Alabama, right? I mean, when you go play there at the highest level under Nick Saban, like for the most part, you've got to grow up. And just talking with him yesterday in the brief time we had a chance to after he was drafted, I mean, this is an intelligent young man too. And when Bill Callahan, if you go back and read articles on Bill or talk to anybody, Mary Kay Cabot, who we've had on the show, talk about Bill Callahan, he likes intelligent players who have confidence in themselves, though, right? But who are also willing to learn.
Yeah.
And this is what this guy is in every facet. Like, he has the confidence. He has that, personality trait you want, like you said, on the line, a little bit of the dog or goon, whatever you want to call it, in him. But this guy, he works harder than anybody. Never missed a practice in his life. Never had surgery, he said. And the injuries that I have had, broken toe, he played through. Like, this is a guy who will do whatever it takes to help his team win, like I said. And I think that right there sells half of it. And then clearly you see enough on tape, and Callahan did, to say, hey, he can be our left tackle.
I said it yesterday. I wouldn't have loved it if Bill Callahan wasn't on staff.
Right.
Because I don't think the old staff could have been trusted to make his transition from right to left go smoothly.
I agree with that.
But the fact that Bill Callahan is a part of this process, the guy has forgotten more about offensive line than I know. Like, who am I to sit here and say, oh, I can break down his film better than he can? Like, there are more than one good tackle in the draft, too. And yes, Joe Alt would have been a great pick. But That's the NFL draft. Unless you are bad enough to get the number one pick, these are things you got to deal with. It works out.
And real quick before we take this call, the last call, I think, first caller we had asked about, why didn't we wait to the second round to go get a guy? Yeah. I personally like some of the dudes, but the development and where you're starting, the floor that you're starting with as far as Joel Olafashinu, JC Latham, Tyler Fuaga, Maris Mims, Tyler Guy, I think the floor drops a little bit after that. The one guy in which they took as a tackle is Troy Furtado, went to Pittsburgh. I think they're going to move him inside at some point too. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. There's a floor, I think, as far as who's left. Kingsley Seal-Martia, Patrick Paul, Brandon Coleman, Roger Rosengartner, Blake Fisher. Like there is a drop-off. So we're talking about having a great coach making really good players great. You got the perfect scenario for that.
Mike at the F&M Bank chat on Facebook says, another boring draft. Y'all are trying your best to defend it, but Titans did it again.
Good.
This is a new staff. I don't know how you can say that just because they drafted a tackle that this was same old Titans. Like, you complained in the offseason. You wanted a new coaching staff. You got a new coaching staff. Let them do their jobs. Like, maybe I'm just too optimistic as a person. I don't think that's the case for anyone who knows me, but maybe I'm just too optimistic that no one knows how any of these guys are going to play. The most can't-miss prospects suck sometimes. The worst prospects and worst fits sometimes end up being great. Chiefs fans booed Patrick Mahomes and hated that pick the second they picked him. Like, you can go through the history of bad reactions to picks that ended up being good. How many of these same people complaining this morning hated the Will Levis pick last season?
Yeah.
Myself included.
Yeah.
So you can either choose to be negative about it and think it's not going to work out and it's same old Titans and Chance Warmack and all these lazy comparisons you're going to make just because of the color of the helmet that the guy wore in college. Or you can choose to say, we have no idea how well the guy's going to play, and we just bragged all offseason that we signed the best offensive line coach in football. Okay, well then let him do his job. Like, what am I missing?
You're not missing anything. I mean, you're exactly right.
We're not doing PR for the Titans here.
No, we're not.
If we hated the pick, we'd tell you we hated the pick.
Yeah.
We hated the Levis pick last year. We told you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were probably wrong. Great. That's part of it.
And you know what? I think most would agree, and there's a lot of people who wanted a wide receiver or wanted Brock Bowers, but I think most would agree that you need a tackle. At some point, you needed a tackle, and I really believe that is what they did. They had the best tackle on the board at that point, and it might have been the first tackle that they believed in. But you did not get Joel. They can't control that. So they went exactly with the next best option for them.
And a damn good option.
A damn good option and above of a receiver because they felt that was a greater need at that point. They did sign Calvin Ridley, by the way, in the offseason.
Greg in Rhode Island next on the phone lines. What's up, Greg?
What up, Greg?
Good morning, guys. And, I am definitely suffering from IWPTSD, Isaiah Williams PTSD. But listening to Callahan and listening to Ramon, I feel better. We need tackles, period. And when you're dying of thirst, you don't question, who produced the bottled water. Even if it's the same company that gave you Rashaan Evans and Chance Warmack. Like, I get it. And that's a lazy take.
Also gave you Derrick Henry.
Hey, that's true. That's true. But not in the first round. It's just that here's the thing. I wanted a left tackle. I wanted a true left tackle. And this whole, we'll see. He might play left. It just doesn't give me great confidence, along with the fact that, he's coming from Bama. I just really hope we didn't get Chance Warmack.
Thank you, Greg.
Here's my thing. Whether he sticks at left and he's a Pro Bowler or he goes to right and he's a Pro Bowler too. Either way, you got two positions that's got to be filled. And you got a guy that said he had Evan Neal at Alabama who turned into a first rounder for them, so he couldn't play left as a freshman.
Yep.
And then, of course, he goes to right, plays well at right, stays at right. And, of course, they pick up the number one tackle in recruiting at Alabama again and Caden Proctor. And for the betterment of the team, the same way for you folks that enjoyed Darnell Wright sticking and playing at right tackle for the Vols, it worked out well for the Vols. It worked out well for Darnell Wright. It's working out well for the Chicago Bears, who took him as the number 10 overall pick. We've seen this happen before. I get where you guys are coming from and why you feel that way. The person that told you they were going to say yes to the prom was picked up by the guy that had a Chevy on 22s, okay? There's absolutely nothing you can do about that. You out here in a very small two-door car that have roll-up windows and no power windows. I get it. That's what you think you have right now. But I'm here to tell you, you also got a Chevy on 24s here. I'm telling you, the guy is going to be fine. I've seen these types before. He's not shaky. He has a good anchor. You look at his hips. He moves well side to side. He's got strong, powerful hands, whether he's playing on the right side or the left side. Y'all ain't got to believe me. I'm not here to play PR for this team. I'm here to tell you when I see a good offensive lineman versus a bad one. Yeah. We can notice that. I told you from the beginning, I didn't really like Jordan Morgan, did I?
Absolutely. That's exactly what you told us.
And that's one of those types of guys that I wouldn't have liked here.
Yep.
If it had been Olu Fashanu, what would have been the conversation this morning,
I think
y'all?
People would have still been mad, honestly. I really do.
And tell me why, though. Like, why would they have been mad at Olu?
They wanted
Because
to trade back if they couldn't get Joe Alt.
And he wasn't Alt.
And when he would have been, we got a small hand left tackle.
And yes.
It's public perception.
By the way, you got a tackle that had the second biggest hands in the entire draft under Marvin Harrison Jr. By the way, just adding in a fun little fact.
I get it. The person that told you they were going to say yes to the prom, from everybody that's not in the war room, right? Including us that do mock simulations and everything, right? It wasn't there. Unless you're going to go to L.A. and smack the heck out of Jim Harbaugh and say, give us our guy. Because that pick to me somewhat didn't make any sense other than best available because you got Rashawn Slater. So a career left tackle now is about to go play right tackle for the L.A. Chargers. Make it make sense on that one.
You're
if you can
exactly
make that one make sense, then you can make sense of this one.
And that's a great point, too. I really would be curious to what Chargers fans are saying right now about that situation because he needs to move over at this point.
They got a starter at right tackle.
Exactly.
And if there were any Chargers fans, we could call them up and ask. But they don't have it.
But there's not. I wanted to add one more point on JC Latham, just when he spoke to us yesterday and talking about competing at the highest level. And I think this is a part of this pick, too. When you look at him, and I know there's been Alabama players that haven't panned out, but go do your research. Most of them have. He has been competing at the highest level since he was in high school. At IMG, he's competed against the best. And at Alabama, even going and switching over to that position, which he probably didn't want to, right? But did because he's a team player. He thrives off of this. And I think when you look at all the positives, they definitely outweigh some of the negatives in terms of the reason to move him to left. I just say to fans, just give him a chance and give Bill Callahan a chance to, make this happen.
Chris Sims, NBC Pro Football Talk last night, tweeting, JC Latham was my favorite offensive line prospect, gigantic human being, big butt and thighs. Nice. Out of context, that's fun. Can maul people. Couple that with the Callahan family teaching O-lineman who boy. Chris Sims says last night. 615-737-1045 is our number. Rapid fire on the phones. All of your reaction to JC Latham next. To all my facility managers out there, how are your plumbing fixtures doing? What's going on? It's Will Bowling here for my friends at Lee Company. Do you have any clogs in a sink or two? Maybe there's just an annoying leak. You can't seem to get it to work. You're trying to do it yourself, but maybe it's inconsistent hot water when you need it the most. Well, for facility managers, business owners, for homeowners, look, no matter your plumbing problem, the team at Lee Company, they are here to help. And for over 80 years, their expert technicians have been here to make your life easier and keep your place of business running efficiently. Available 24/7, 365. Call Lee Company today at 615-567-1000 or contact them online at leecompany.com. That's 615-567-1000. 80 years of experience. Lee Company has been trusted since 1944. You do things long enough, you learn how to do them right. 615-567-1000. That's Lee Company. All you need. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Ramon, Kayla, and Will. 615-737-1045. Your reaction to the JC Latham pick, starting with Corey in Hendersonville. What's up, Corey?
Good morning, guys. Happy post-draft day. I really appreciate y'all's insight on this, and this is my perspective. I'm sitting on the couch last night, just like everybody else. You know, I see Alt go off the board. I see Malik Neighbors go off the board, and the first thing that I'm saying to myself is please don't take JC Latham. Please don't. Because the entire time as we've been sitting here in our cars listening to you guys give us information on the best prospects in this draft, we didn't discuss JC Latham as an option here to Tennessee, okay? And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give Bill Callahan the benefit of the doubt that he can turn this guy into a top-tier left tackle. But when you look at some of the other options that were there on the board, you had one of the best edge rushers, that actually ended up going off the board in the middle of the first round in Minnesota. I wish that we would have stuck with one of the left tackles, like the actual left tackles that we've been talking about, like, Fashanu or, somebody along that lines. But the biggest thing is I'm going to be positive about it because you guys have talked me off the ledge a little bit, and I appreciate y'all's insight. Ramon, I appreciate, your insight and being a former offensive lineman in the league. Hey, and it could be worse. We could be Falcons fans right now. So.
Thank you, Corey. And it's funny. Literally, we said those exact words the second before we turned the microphones on to start this.
We did.
My goodness. Talk about radio over there this morning.
Let me say this, too, real quick, Corey, and I'll be quick, Will. Is the first edge rusher was one that had a medical issue, number one, that you got to worry about in a sense. Can he finish that? He also went middle of the first round, also not a top 10 pick. You got to look at where the value of these guys are and what they were, too. There was also a need for teams that needed those guys. Jared Verse, who a lot of people had as their number one guy, did not go number one. You chose a guy with a neck injury more than anything. Like, it really does boil down to what works for you in your squad, too.
Nick on YouTube says 104.5 has talked about the same thing for a month now, and none of it happened. Welcome to the NFL draft.
Yeah, welcome.
Which is, again,
it's just the way this works.
Which is, again, why we're not in the rooms with them.
Exactly.
I think you can tell that right now. Yep. And as it pertains to some people saying you play cover up or something, like, no. We were off the beaten path, too, as it pertains to what they were planning on doing.
We talked a lot about Latham yesterday.
The last 2 days, we've talked a lot about JC
100%.
Latham.
Let's go to Dougie in Nashville. What's up, Dougie?
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
What's up, Dougie?
Hey, what's the comparison? You said Chevy on 24?
Yeah. He pretty much came and took your girl last night. That's all that was.
I like that. I think it's a good pick. I think he could transition well. He's a monster.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good defensive ends that play on the left side in college.
Yeah.
And I don't want to break everybody's heart, but a good tackle could play right and left tackle. Sorry about that.
No doubt.
But I would like to see the stat line as far as Milroe. How many times? It'd be interested how many times he ran to the right side or to the left side or up the middle. Because it seemed like he was running to the right side a lot. Like there was a lot of open space over there on that right side.
It was.
Thank you, Dougie.
But I wanted to see who you guys think is going in round 2. A definite answer, 100% definite.
If we don't get it right, we're going to have a lot of mad callers. You didn't talk about this guy.
To let you down again? Is
right?
that what we want?
Rand Carthon did say they are targeting, obviously, specifics. But, then again, how many things before that can you predict happen?
And he also said if there was a big board list, I think somebody last night asked him, was this the second guy you had on your big board list? He's like, if there was a big board list. And I'm like, I thought you said there was a big board list.
Real quick, give me one name for 38 that you like.
Junior Colson.
I'd say Edrin Cooper or Ladd McConkey at 38. I think if you get a little bit further back, Colson. It'll be interesting. Colson would be great.
I'd love for him to trade back.
Yeah.
Colson would be great. Chris in Hermitage next. What's up, Chris?
Hey, gang. Thank y'all for taking my call as always. I would like to say that I am fine with the JC Latham pick. I mean, I do like the prospect, actually, even though he does have the title of project on him. I mean, the reality of it is all these guys are projects. I don't care about your testing or your pedigree or your stats or whatever. None of them have taken a snap in the NFL, so, more guys have failed when it comes to doing that than they have succeeded. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the best thing a team can do is take the project you feel the best about working with and go with it, right?
100% agree.
As far as my question goes, let me lay the framework real quick. So there were multiple reports last night about 3 teams trying to move up into the top 10 for a quarterback, right? Who was the Broncos, Minnesota, and the Raiders. And this is obviously a hypothetical because it's after the fact. But I'm just curious, if you're the Titans and you get on the phone and you have a chance to move back, this is hypothetical, obviously, but if you get a chance to move back to one of those 11 through 13 picks, and they offer, say, that pick in a third rounder, and you have a chance to get like Fuaga or Mims plus that third, maybe more, would you have taken it? I'm saying, if the Titans got that call and they refused it for JC Latham, I'm fine with it again, but I'm just curious of your thoughts. If you're on the phone and you got that call as a GM, what would y'all have done? Thank you all.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, it's impossible to make that statement without knowing what the offer is.
Yep.
It's what I hate about the trade conversation every time we have it. It's this arbitrary, in the clouds. You got to have 2 to tango. I don't think they had a team to tango with, and they were not willing to let JC Latham become a New York Jet.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest telltale sign. Even if they maybe got a good offer, we don't know, but they were that confident in, hey, we got to get this guy at 7 as our tackle. I think that's the telling part about it all, of not trading down.
The guys who were slated as 1, 2, 3 went 1, 2, 3. That's what you also got to look at, too, as far as the O-line and the tackles go.
Would I have rather trade back and get Olu or Fuaga and accumulate some picks? Probably, yeah.
I feel that.
I like the pick. I don't love the pick of JC Latham. I didn't like it in the moment as much as I do now, doing more reading and listening to more people who know a lot more ball than I do about it. I would have loved to trade back. That's insinuating that they had an offer. They may not have even had an offer. Rand Carthon said they took calls. I'm not in that room. I don't know what those calls sounded like.
That's also insinuating that they were okay with taking one of those guys and being like, we're confident he could be our left tackle, or we can switch over Fuaga to the left side, which was also a guy who's played on the right.
More reaction and more analysis from the offensive line veteran in our room as we come back here to begin hour number 2 on JC Latham, plus what he said pre-draft about making the switch from right tackle to left tackle, and what Brian Callahan, the head coach, and the GM said about that move last night. That's next.
It is time for some spring cleaning, and maybe you get the chance to do it this weekend. And that is why our friends at Window Nation have you covered. If you are doing some of that spring cleaning, you open your windows, they're cracked, leaking, won't open or stay open. This is the time to call Window Nation. You can buy 2 windows right now, get 2 free, plus a little bonus here, 0 down, 0 interest, and 0 payments for 24 months.
No doubt about it, man. It's one of those things where you windows, you think about it last minute. I'm here to tell you, if you don't trust your windows and you need somebody to trust, all Window Nation does is windows. They are expert and installed over 200,000 windows last year. That's 40 times more than the average window company, with 96% of them having no follow-up service required. That's because they measure each window 3 times and ensure proper fit. Listen, don't listen to us. Go to the online 20,000 positive reviews and see what others are saying who've already got Window Nation windows. Again, buy 2, get 2 free, and pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. Reach out to them at 866-90Nation or go online to windownation.com.
What's going on? Good morning. 7:02 from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Titans have their left tackle, selecting Alabama offensive tackle JC Latham. Latham spent most of his time on the right side of the offensive line for the Tide, but head coach Brian Callahan says that he'll start on the left for the Titans.
He sees himself as a left tackle. I mean, they all do. But he felt like that's the way that it happened in Alabama. They were trying to get their best five, and he was comfortable doing it. He played on the right side. He was left tackle in high school. So that part of it, he almost expected it, which is the attitude you want guys to have. I think he possesses the requisite traits to do it. And there's not going to be too many guys that are going to turn down a chance to play on the left side either. They all think they can do it. So I think he's fully capable of it.
Day 2 starts with the Bills at 33, but the Titans aren't far behind with the 38th overall pick. Plenty of talent left on the board. Cooper DeJean, cornerback from Iowa, Texas wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, and Illinois defensive lineman Johnny Newton. Whoever the Titans pick, you can be sure to listen to it right here on 104.5 The Zone with Titans radio coverage starting for the second and third round at 6 o'clock. Ramon Foster, Mike Keith, Red Bryan, Coach Mack, and Amy Wells, all the gang, all together, all the picks. Stay with them for all your coverage. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Ramon, Kayla, and Will streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, on the 104.5 The Zone app. Immediately following the show on your favorite podcast platform. Tons of your reaction throughout the morning on the phones at 615-737-1045, on your keyboards. Or you can jump on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel, Facebook live stream, X account, or the Twitch channel as well.
Twitch, please.
You can join the F&M Bank chat right there. Join the comment section, and we will get to you. Join the community there that is up and moving this morning. Lots of discussion, fiery discussion, as the Tennessee Titans make JC Latham their new left tackle last night. We have a man in the room who switched from the right side to the left side and played 11 years in the National Football League. But Robert Walsh is on the phone right now, so we'll get to him in a minute on that. No, I'm just kidding.
Damn, I didn't know that was on your resume, Bert.
Ramon, how does one move from the right side to the left side, and what will make JC Latham capable of making that switch?
His athletic ability. It's there. You see him. Look at his combine workouts. He didn't do the testing. And again, that's one of the things that I'll say. If he doesn't have testing, he didn't run his 40, didn't do his vertical, didn't do his broad, didn't do any of those things at his pro or his at combine, then that ought to tell you what type of athlete and prospect he is. He moves well. He is one of those guys that when he moves, you feel the ground, and you need those type of dudes on your offensive line. What makes it easier, though, Will, is a mindset. He clearly has a mindset and wants to prove to the world that, hey, I can go over to the left side. Bama has a situation. They over-recruit, and they over-recruit well. They've had, I feel like, the last 3 number 1 offensive tackles come into their building, him being one of them. Evan Neal being another one of those guys. Caden Proctor right after him. It will be fascinating to see where he settles in at. Again, he's your starting left tackle as it pertains to where they would set a depth chart right now. I like the guy. I do. I've said this, and we talked about it a little bit off air. You needed an attitude guy. You're getting an attitude guy. You're getting a guy that has good hips. Again, he ended up dropping weight that makes him more mobile, and you have a situation to where if we're talking about a 1, 2, and 3 consensus, as far as just the way people looked at it, it was JC and it was Olu. You got the second guy. Mm-hmm. And don't let the talking heads, including us, tell you that, hey, you should have got Joe Alt when you had a team at the number 5 position that took him before you. And again, the biggest argument I have is if he was a career left tackle at Notre Dame, and I said it earlier and I say it now, then why did they take a left tackle to put him on the right side? You have to have flexibility and be moldable enough as a young pro to make that switch if necessary, because they already have a Pro Bowl left tackle with the Chargers.
He was asked yesterday on the chat with him, what Bill Callahan told him about moving to left tackle. He met with Bill Callahan for 2 hours during the top 30 visit. 2 hours. Just sitting there breaking down film, probably saying, hey, this is what you're going to have to do as a left tackle here, because that's what we want you to be. And he said exactly that. That was the expectation that Bill Callahan said when he came here on the visit, to play left tackle. And he said, he knew, I was athletic enough to get the job done. So they go to work now.
And in the pre-draft process, JC Latham did an interview with Jim Wyatt in Detroit this week and said, absolutely, I can play left tackle. I was trained at left all my life, and I get to Bama and Evan Neal, a top 10 pick. He was at left, so I went to right. Going back to left, I've been training all this offseason, so I will be ready to go. It sounds like that it wasn't just a Titans discussion either about moving to the left side. Every team he was meeting with, I think this was the conversation for JC Latham. This is not something where he's going to drop into a pass set on the left side for the first time in a Titans jersey. He's been doing it all offseason because with his size and athleticism, I think the expectation around the league is that whoever drafted him, regardless of LA or outside of LA, the Chargers, was going to draft him and play on the left side.
Right.
I also think it's interesting, too, that he did play left his whole life. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was a nose tackle as a freshman and sophomore in high school when he was 260 pounds at 6'5" as a sophomore in high school. And when he transferred to IMG Academy, he was the #1 offensive lineman in the country coming out of high school, was wanted by everyone in college football, liked Ohio State, liked LSU, ultimately commits to Alabama as the #1 lineman in the country. And you had Evan Neal there, okay? Sits for a year, plays a little bit of guard as a freshman at Alabama as a backup, starts at right tackle his sophomore season, and then his junior season, they were going to move him back to left, but then you have a 5-star freshman in Caden Proctor who's more comfortable on the left side. So which one do you want to move, right? You don't have to move either of them if you let Caden Proctor play on the left side and you just keep JC Latham where he was the year before as a sophomore.
Yep.
It makes sense. I think when you break it down with the facts and not just the, for lack of a better term, lazy complaint of, well, he's not a left tackle. He is a left tackle.
He's a left tackle.
For all of his football career, except for 2 seasons, JC Latham has been a left tackle. 615-737-1045. Mark is in the borough up next. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, good morning, y'all.
Morning.
So this is, I think it was a good pick because first of all, we don't have Derrick Henry anymore, and he would take terrible blocking and make it look good. But now that we have, I'd say a dog for real, mm-hmm. at this position now, like, Ramon, I got a question. Of course you were moved as well, but is the days of right, left about to be over? Like, if you could play tackle, it don't matter if you go on the left or right because they lining up these rushers from the left and right anyway. So what if, your strongest offensive tackle on the line needs to play right one day because they're swapping around? You know what I mean? Like, I kind of want them to be versatile. We need to put them on the right because they're best rushers on the right side. Throw them on the right. I'll hang up and listen.
You get it, Mark.
Yeah.
Mark, you get it. That's the whole answer right there.
So Coach Mack said last night the second the pick was made too.
That's the answer right there is you need guys that are good on both sides, right and left. Again, if they want to move him back to the right side, he's good there. He's done it. He's done both. The best thing that a young fella can have coming into the league is flexibility. There's a saying, I'll tell anybody this, and I told some of the young guys at UT this. When you're young, the more you can do, the longer you stay around. We'll see this play out in real time with Peter and him, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm.
Wait, you mean Peter's not going to be the left tackle?
Peter, he's already gone into left guard. I know.
I'm trolling.
Look at your division.
Yeah.
Look what Houston has done with outside rushers. Daniil Hunter. Look what Jacksonville has. Like,
The Colts added the number one defensive player on the board last night in Leatu Latu.
So who you
edge rusher out of UCLA?
See what I'm saying? There we go.
Coach Mack was on the show yesterday, and to answer that last call, essentially said the exact same thing. In today's NFL, you want athletes regardless of where they played in college. How do you sort out that top five? If Joe Alt is one, who do you immediately have as your next favorite prospects?
Well, my next favorite guy, I mean, as far as just a football player and someone that I think will be around for a long time in the league, coming into it, is JC Latham. I mean, I like him. Fashanu has been playing left tackle, but when you start looking at him, I mean, he's got some. I mean, you got three pretty elite guys right there. But when you start looking at having played at a big school, and then just when you're picking this high, you need some unusual traits. If you're picking, when you're choosing this high, I mean, I've always thought that JC Latham, and I think Ramon's thought the same thing. When you start looking at him, I mean, you get fixated on right tackle, left tackle. Let's just talk about really good tackles. JC Latham, to me, is right at the top of this thing too.
There you go. There's Titans Radio's head coach, Coach Dave McGinnis, yesterday on the show about JC Latham. And coming up next, we are joined by a guy who will join Titans Radio coverage tonight. He is VolQuest's Brent Hubbs. You hear him every Friday at 7:20 here on the show. A little bit of a different kind of conversation with Brent this morning. We'll talk about JC Latham. We'll talk about some SEC prospects who heard their names called last night and some more big names who are still on the board tonight for the Tennessee Titans to take. Coming up next.
If you've been here for a while, you know what a big deal this is coming soon. Well, it's very soon, all right? The next 3 days, April 26th, 27th, and 28th. This is the big one with unbelievable store-wide savings up to 35% off. They will hold back nothing. From rings, earrings, bands, bracelets, pendants, thousands of engagement ring settings, natural and lab-grown diamonds. Special pricing across the board with zero interest financing as well. So this is when the staff at Genesis know they can break all the house rules. Plus, world-class designers have flown in with all new collections of fashion jewelry from New York and California. This is stuff you can't find anywhere else, and it'll all be on sale. So if you're getting engaged or have a special event coming up, real quick pro tip, diamonds don't expire, okay? So whether it's graduation, Mother's Day, anniversary, birthdays, whatever, you can't miss this incredible buying opportunity. Don't miss the expanded selection and extreme value pricing. People drive for hours to be a part of this. Mark your calendars, April 26th, 27th, and 28th. Exclusively at Genesis Diamonds and Luxury Pre-Owned Rolexes, located in Green Hills and Cool Springs. See store for details.
Friday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will is brewed by 8th and Rose to RKW. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh is our producer. I'm Will Bowling. And joining us right now on the phones, as he does every Friday at 7:20, you'll hear him tonight on Titans radio coverage of Night 2 of the NFL Draft as well. He is VolQuest and On 3's Brent Hubbs. What's up, Brent? How are you?
I'm doing great. Hope you guys are doing well this morning.
We are good. We've got a lot of draft things to react to. And first and foremost, how excited are you to join the illustrious and just incredible crew that is Titans Radio tonight?
Well, I'm excited. I'm glad Ramon Foster's only a first-round guy, so he'll vacate his seat for me tonight and give me an opportunity to hang out with Coach Mack and with the great Mike Keith and have a good time with those guys tonight. I really enjoyed it last year and looking forward to coming back and hanging out with them tonight.
See, a trade was made, Hubbs.
Surprise.
A trade was made. They traded me for Chipotle, and I'll be in here with you tonight, okay?
Yeah, you will
right?
have a moment here with you. Yeah.
Will.
You're
love
coming in tonight, Ramon?
Yes, 100%, man. Titans Radio out here, man. I'm part of the crew. You can't get me out of this room.
That must have been one heck of a signing bonus you got for that deal, Ramon.
Well, you know I was in Knoxville on Wednesday. I see what NIL look like.
Yeah, you're a world traveler, man. I look forward to seeing you tonight.
Me too. I think you might run into Ron Slay here. Their show will be ending by the time we go on air, too. So
will be no fun at all.
Oh, no, there'll be no comedy done in that room.
I love it. Brent, you're going to get Ramon on like the one night a year he's not at a baseball field after the show ends, so it'll be great.
That's so true. Tell Tony V. Never mind. We ain't going to open recruit on the air. Well, you just tell Tony V. There's one in Hendersonville, all right?
I love it.
We only had Nick Saban talk about tampering last night.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's all good.
I literally, real quick, Brent, because I know we're going to talk about JC Latham pick, some of these other SEC guys that have been picked last night and were on the board tonight. That was insane to me. I thought Nick Saban did a great job on ABC last night, but the fact that he's on the record saying, yeah, we tried to get Quinyon Mitchell to go into the portal, and he wouldn't. Like, how in the world is this a thing that's happening on live television?
Oh, well, welcome to retirement. I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, statute of limitations, I guess, is up on that deal for him. I'm not really sure how that works. But, yeah, I thought that one was pretty wild last night that he just dropped that out of the blue. Like, yeah, we did everything we could to get him to go in the portal, but he just wouldn't do it for us.
That's insane.
He pretty much told you, well, that's what the NCAA is worth anyway, right?
It's insane.
There you do. That is true.
VolQuest Brent Hubbs with us this morning. Brent, wanted to ask you about JC Latham and a guy that you saw play against Tennessee a couple of times as a right tackle and just all the talent that has come through Alabama at the tackle position. He gets there, and Evan Neal is there on the left side. Caden Proctor this past season as well. What stands out when you look at JC Latham as a college prospect?
Just powerful. A guy who's a good athlete, but is strong, can move people. I chuckle a little bit at the whole, can he play the left side versus the right side? I mean, last time I checked in the National Football League, they got pass rushers on both sides. The value of the right tackle to me is significantly higher than it was 15, 20 years ago with everything everybody's doing on defense. So whether he plays right or left, it doesn't matter. He's going to be a staple who's going to anchor in. When I saw that he was on the board, that Alt had gone to the Chargers and Latham was there, I'm like, well, that's a home run for the Titans because I love the competition he's played. The program, obviously, he's come out of has been highly successful. He's a highly competitive guy with big, strong hands and a great trunk to move people. I think there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Titans fan this morning and having watched JC Latham play a lot of football over the last few years.
As it pertains to just how his play is, why was in your evaluation and watching, because I'm sure you did, what was he like coming out of high school that made him the number one overall prospect?
Well, I mean, he had all of the physicality. I mean, he wasn't strong enough, but you could see just how heavy he played with his hands. He had a great trunk, but he was well coached coming out of high school. He wasn't a guy who just pushed people over. I think you're always looking, and I think high school offensive linemen are hard to evaluate for the most part, because are they playing against a guy? Are they playing against competition that challenges them? Or are they just playing against some guys they can basically take one arm and kind of push them over and be done, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that he's a guy who played with technique coming out of high school. He was developed, but he had good heavy hands, strong hands, a good trunk. I mean, you just looked at him and went, there's no way that guy's not going to be a good football player. And everybody had that one right. He's a good football player, and he's going to be a good NFL football player, and a great system with a really good offensive line coach at a franchise that has a great need for offensive line. I mean, for as good of a fit as it is for the Tennessee Titans because of what they need, it's a great fit for JC Latham to come to Nashville.
When you look at his style of play also, the hands, the body type, the hips, how huge can it be for just being able to set the tone? I know that's one thing we always talk about, like football is a scorer's game now, right, where you want to see that. And we saw that in the first 14 picks being all offensive. How do you view his ability in the run games, Hubbs?
He's a finisher. I mean, I think he's a guy who, he's tried to take people to the ground. He is finishing blocks. Ramon, you know this better than I do. You played in that league. You know what it takes. He plays with a bit of an edge about him. He plays through the whistle, but he's looking to finish blocks, whether it's a pull block and he's getting to the second level on a linebacker, or, he's washing a guy out of a gap. He's not just walling somebody off. He's looking to finish. And I think, as much as we talk about the finesse of the game and the scores game, and, we're spreading it out in the National Football League and everybody's looking to score a bunch of points, you still got to play physical at the line of scrimmage, man. I don't care if you're throwing it 45 times a game or you're trying to run it, whatever. You got to be physical. And I think that he takes all of his physical traits and uses that to be a physical football player, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest joining us this morning on RKW, talking a little bit of draft. So let's get into the SEC, Brent, and just looking at the first round. Always a lot of SEC guys that we see go. In particular, I want to talk about some of the LSU guys. They've got Malik Neighbors. They've got Brian Thomas Jr. that went in the first round. What is it about these wide receivers from LSU, especially as of late, that are really allowing them to go this early and then really find success at the next level?
Well, I think that they can all run. They all have size. They have everything that you're looking for. And I think the other thing, too, is it's the success of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and some of those guys before them, right? Because what's the notion? Well, I mean, he came out of that program. Those receivers know how to play. Look at the success those receivers have had. Some of those things factor in sometimes as well for people. I think Neighbors is interesting because that one was a little bit up and down with Malik Neighbors. He has all the skill in the world. I think for him it's all about staying focused. I thought he was a bit too emotional as a football player. Now, he got settled in with Jaden Daniels and had a great year this past year with Jaden Daniels. But as that transition to Jaden Daniels and to Brian Kelly that first year went about, man, he was a really frustrated football player in watching him play. His emotions came through, and that adjustment to a new system, a new coach, and everything else was a bit challenging. So, I think he's going to have some patience at the NFL level, because I don't think he's going to come in and just be a dominant player out of the gate. That doesn't mean he's not worthy of the pick. I'm not saying that. But there is a transition there. He's going to have to emotionally get through the transition better than he did the transition to Brian Kelly his first year at LSU. But those guys can run. They can take the top off of it. Neighbors can run any routes you want him to run for sure. And again, they've been put in a position to be successful because they had a quarterback who could throw them the ball. So it highlighted their skill set, and that was certainly the case this past year.
I think a lot of talk was, where will Brock Bowers go? And we saw last night just outside the top 10, Brent, going to the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think about that fit? And are you a believer in Brock Bowers and being kind of that game changer at the next level?
It's a great question. It really is, because I think he has a ton of tools. I think there's a lot to like about him. He's not necessarily prototypical in some cases, but the tight end position is not as prototypical as it used to be. So I think it's going to be, how physical is he in the run game? What are you going to ask him to do in the run game? From a pass receiving standpoint, he can do anything he wants to do. And I think that it's going to be interesting to watch his transition to the National Football League. I mean, that's a guy that everybody, picked completely apart because just you're trying to figure out, can he do everything you want a tight end to do in the NFL? And obviously the Raiders feel like he can. And, I mean, he had great success at Georgia. And the tight end is such a big part of what we're doing in the NFL in a lot of different ways. But can he do everything that you want the tight end to do from a physicality standpoint right out of the gate? We'll see. I think his adjustment will be, and Ramon, you would know this too. I mean, the physicality level is different for him and how he handles that as a tight end when they ask him to block in line and do the different things like that. How does that go? Is he Mark Andrews, the guy from the Ravens that we see? Is that the type of player? Exactly how does he transition into the NFL? I think he'll be fine because I think he's, coming out of a good program at Georgia, which highlights the tight end, and obviously he was a success there from day one.
Brent Hubbs of All Quested on 3 is our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brent, when Michael Penix was being recruited in Ramon Foster's high school recruiting class, because it feels like he has been around for that long. I know a lot has happened with him since you got to know him as a Tennessee commitment back in the day before Jeremy Pruitt sent him elsewhere. What do you think about him and the Atlanta Falcons, number 8 overall, and the shock of the night last night with him going as early as he did?
Well, he didn't send him elsewhere. He yanked the rug out from under him. That's what he did. I mean, let's just be clear here. Michael's dad was a really good running back at Tennessee Tech. They had a lot of ties to Knoxville and to East Tennessee and the state of Tennessee. They were so excited about getting to come to play at Tennessee, and then were just crushed when the opportunity didn't present itself. Stunned that the Falcons took him. I'm curious to see what they do with him because he's not going to have a whole lot of patience to sit and wait. Where's Kirk Cousins this morning? What's he thinking other than, hey, I got $100 million coming to my bank account. I don't care what you people do at this point in my career. Maybe that's his thought process. But Penix vertically gets the ball down the field really well. I think that there are – he's going to have to transition into a pro-style system, and I know we're getting away from that a little bit with some of the spread stuff, but everything he did at Washington will not transition cleanly to the National Football League. But he's a smart guy who's done it in a couple of different systems. I think mechanically he's gotten a lot better, and I think that's a credit to the quarterback development, the quarterback coaches he's had, and the work he's put in. Now, he's been banged up. He's had injury. Can he stay healthy? Those questions are out there. But from a skill set standpoint, Michael Penix can spin it, and he can do a lot of things. And it's very clear everybody's going to take chances on quarterbacks in the early in the draft because you can't win without one, right? You got to have a guy who can succeed. And I was stunned the Falcons took him where they took him after they did the Kirk Cousins deal. But if he can stay healthy, Michael Penix can be a solid, can be a really good player and a starter for the National Football League for the Falcons. That franchise has got a lot of holes, a lot of things to work on. We'll see how they transition into the Michael Penix era and when that happens.
Brent Hubbs of All Question on 3 with us this morning. I don't feel like we've talked about that at all. Where you from, Brent? We've just been talking, all right? It's a fun day. The NFL does this to us. Another thing the NFL is doing, is it copying college? Because 1 through 14, Hubbs, is all offense. What do you say to defensive players or people who have defensive kids about what the NFL is about if we saw that in real time?
Well, there's a couple of things here. Well, one, I think there's a shift. Obviously, scoring points in the National Football League is at a premium, right? And everybody's looking to find ways to score points because we're not the Baltimore Ravens of the early 2000s. That's not the game right now. It's what Kansas City's doing, right? I mean, here's Kansas City winning the Super Bowl, and the first thing they do is draft another receiver last night. It's about scoring points. Everybody's looking for offense. It sells tickets. There's the entertainment value. The game is set up for the offense to be more successful than it's ever been. The other thing, too, from last night, and this is why I'm cautious in saying, boy, we've made this huge shift. The top talented, top-ranked defensive players in the draft last night had some question marks around them with various things. Inconsistencies. Guy's really talented, but he was inconsistency. Look at Latham, the kid from UCLA, was forced to retire from football because of a neck injury, comes back. If nobody's scared of his neck, and it doesn't, I mean, there were some NFL teams that clearly medically red flagged him. We'll never know for sure, but I guarantee you there were some. If that's not happening, where does he go in the draft? And we're just a year removed, right, from Will Anderson going high in the draft and defensive guys going in the top 10. So I don't know that it's all of a sudden the first round is going to be just the offensive draft. I think that's the way this draft played out. I don't know that it's going to be that way with every draft. I think that there's good defensive players in this draft that a lot of people had some first-round grades on, but there were some asterisks to those guys. I think some of the first-round selections we saw last night were in some ways safer picks. I think when you look at offensive line, the hit rate on offensive linemen in the first round is higher than any other position in the national football, in the draft. And everybody's always looking for offensive linemen. I think it's a little bit of how the draft fell last night more than it is suddenly it's all about only offense and it's all about offensive guys going high in the draft. We know quarterbacks are going to go super high, and we know everybody's looking for offensive tackles. And then it gets a little bit interesting after that. And I think last night some of those top-flight, top-talented defensive guys had a few question marks around them that probably dropped them down the draft board a little bit.
VolQuest Brent Hubbs with us every Friday at 7:20 on RKW. A late submission from Grant R. in Blount County. It's been a while since we've had a question from him.
I'm glad he survived the rehearsal dinner last night.
That's right.
That was my only concern.
That's right. Says, how does covering the NFL draft live on radio compare to sleeping on an ironing board?
Well, they're both adventuresome, and I think that's the bigger thing that takes away. But they're both exciting, and it's going to be really exciting tonight with Coach Mack and with Ramon Foster and Mike Keith there. You better be on your toes. You better be ready to go, and you better get out of the way and stay in your lane. So I look forward to it. I did it last year and wasn't real sure. I was like, I'm not sure if they need me there, and I still don't know if they need me there. But I had a blast doing it. I mean, the preparation all those guys put into what they do is just unbelievable. And we had a ball doing it last night. I love the second day of the draft because you got more picks, you got more things to talk about, more movement, trades, all those types of things. So I'm looking forward to it tonight. But good job, Grant Ramey, referencing Man in a Hurry from season 1, I guess it is, of the Andy Griffith Show. Good job.
I love it.
Grant R. Good job.
That was when Michael Penix was finishing his high school career, was when that episode aired for the first time. Brent Hubbs joins us every Friday morning at 7:20 and tonight on Titans Radio with the whole crew. We are excited to listen, Brent. Thanks so much as always.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
There he is, Brent Hubbs of VolQuest with us. Some really good stuff there, I think, on offensive line specifically out of high school. We can react to as the show continues. We've got just a couple of minutes until Mike Keith will join us at 8. If you want to get on the phone lines, do it now to react to the JC Latham pick. 615-737-1045. That's next. RKW is brewed by 8th and Rose till 104.5 The Zone. Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 615-737-1045. And the VOT joins us in 15 minutes. That is, of course, voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. Your reaction all morning long to JC Latham becoming a Tennessee Titan. And Phil in Portland leads us off. What's up, Phil?
Hey, good morning. Happy Miller Lite to y'all. Listen, I just wanted to come on here this morning. That was an awesome pickup, and it was a very much needed. I just wanted to say this. Look, you're never going to be able to see what you got in Will Levis. You're never going to be able to see what you got in this Pollard guy, these receivers. Everything that you're doing is centered around getting this offensive line straight. And on top of that, you got one of what's considered to be the greatest offensive line coaches now, and so it just makes sense to start there and work abroad. I mean, then we're going to see what we got and everybody else. That's just my opinion. I love y'all's show. I hope you have a blessed day.
You too, my
Let's rock,
brother.
Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
Crack up in that Miller Lite.
Phil, ready to go.
I bet Phil makes a hell of a rack of ribs.
You know what else he does well? You know what else Phil does? He makes a hell of a Rotel of cheese dip. I guarantee
You can tell when a man has got a Traeger. And Phil in Portland is smoking some kind of meat this weekend on a Traeger.
Let's go, Phil.
Whatever he's smoking,
you.
I'm in.
Go, Phil.
Please and thank you. Okay?
Preston and Dixon next. Go ahead, Preston.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Big fan. I've been seeing a lot of comments and stuff on Facebook. People hating on this pick. But, I mean, from the highlights I've seen, that boy is a dog. And, I mean, if Bill Callahan sees something in him, then, I mean, you got a fan in me. But thank y'all for taking my call. I hope y'all have a good one.
No doubt.
Facts right there.
Your first problem is you're on Facebook. I'll start there. No, I can't.
That's a lot of information, though.
Oh, goodness.
I love that for him. The conversations I had with folks around this is two different tapes that you look at. It's Joe Alt's tape and it's JC Latham's tape. Again, the 1, 2, and 3 was JC. Well, it was Alt, JC, and it was Olu, right? Olu Fashion.
Who had a Penn
Those
State.
were your 1, 2, 3 when it all shook out, right? Emeritus Mims in there, Tali Fuaga's in there, and stuff like that. The conversation I've had with people has been, look, all right, when you look at Joe Alt's tape, it's fine. It gets the job done. Hey, you don't have to really worry about much, but where's the excitement? And it's not much excitement. It gets the job done. When you mention a guy like JC Latham, it's like, yeah, a little bit more risky. You got to move him over to the left side, but you get the attitude, you get the run block, you get the finish, you get the hands on them, and they're done, they're cooked. It's a situation where you say to yourself, all right, how do you want to live life? You live life by saying, all right, this is fine. Or you want to take a little bit of a risk when it boils down to it. And when it pertains to how you select, like you can say, all right, I wish we'd have taken Joe Alt. Well, guess what? You wouldn't need to lose 1 or 2 more games. But I guarantee you loved winning the games at the places that you won, right? Like you enjoyed being able to pile on certain teams, right? That was all right.
What is the biggest difference between JC Latham and Joe Alt? Besides just that they one played on right and one played on left in college.
The biggest difference is the explosiveness, I think. When you're looking for yards, you know you're going to be able to get it. As it pertains to a guy like Joe Alt, as far as the run game goes, I think I'm giving the advantage to JC Latham. Mm-hmm. As it pertains to saying, hey, I'm stepping off the bus and we got an attitude guy, I'm going with JC Latham. As it pertains to knowing that, look, it's going to be a steady Eddie and just figure it out. You won't mention his name and he's going to be fine. That's Joe Alt. And I think that's supreme value too. Again, he was the number 1 prospect for a reason. I absolutely love that for Joe Alt too. But when you're trying to pull guys, put guys in space, I think you have the athleticism of JC Latham more than you do a Joe Alt. I think you're more versatile with JC Latham than you are with Joe Alt. And I know what everybody's saying. You got to keep Will Levis comfortable, right? You still get that out of a JC Latham. Mm-hmm. If across the board, everybody says 1, 2, and 3, and you got number 2 out of that list, you should be able to sleep a little bit better knowing that this guy isn't, a rug that you're going to walk over. I'll say this. As it pertains to being able to set a tone, knowing that you're going to fight, and I know I bring that up often, but if you got a big, soft dude, and that's not Joe Alt at all, but if you got a big, soft dude or a line that you question, man, are we tough? You ain't got to question it no more with the guy like JC Latham walking into your locker room.
I think you have to play with a certain tenacity and have a variety on a line. And right now, I think this adds a little bit of oomph to that line. And I think there's some good players in Peter Skoronski and Kush, but this is a different personality you're adding to this line on top of all the other skills. And I love what Nick Saban said about his former player. He said, this guy's powerful. He was really a good protection guy in terms of the pass, because we already know the run, but he improved on the pass protection in college. He said, I'm telling you, if you want to be a trendsetter, this guy will set the trend for you of being a physical football team on the line.
And to all the people, I think, who will say, all right, well, if Joe Alt had been there, though, they would have probably taken Joe Alt. I think that's true. Mm-hmm. If you had to pick between Joe Alt and JC Latham, you would have taken Joe Alt. What if the Houston Texans had the first pick last year? You think they would have taken Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud? You think today they're not happy they have C.J. Stroud? Yeah. It's not always about who your first pick is going into the draft. Make the most of who you have based on what's available to you. Develop that player and make it work.
That's a word right there. Say that again for the slow people in the back.
Do you really think that if the Houston Texans had the number one pick last year, they would have taken C.J. Stroud? Probably not. Probably would have taken Bryce Young. Who would you rather have right now between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud? C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud.
It's two players. You have no idea how players are going to fare when they enter the NFL. We're splitting hairs here when talking about the difference between the first and the second player in a position group. Your job as a coach, the reason why you have coaches, is to take the second or third best guy and make him the best in a draft class. Their identity as a prospect is not set in stone the first time they try on their shoulder pads and their helmet in the National Football League. You take whatever you have the opportunity to draft and you make it work. That is why these guys get paid millions of dollars. Coming up next, voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, discusses JC Latham right here on RKW.
8 o'clock. Good morning. Happy Friday from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Titans have their left tackle, selecting Alabama offensive tackle JC Latham. He spent most of his time on the right side at Alabama, but head coach Brian Callahan doesn't think that's going to be an issue for the Titans.
He sees himself as a left tackle. I mean, they all do. But he felt like that's the way that it happened at Alabama. They were trying to get their best five, and he was comfortable doing it. Playing on the right side, he was left tackle in high school. So that part of it, he almost expected it, you know.
Titans coverage continues on day 2, starting with the Bills at 33. Titans aren't far behind that with the 38th overall pick. Plenty of talent left on the board. Cooper DeJean, cornerback from Iowa, Texas wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, and Illinois defensive lineman Johnny Newton. Titans radio coverage starts at 6 with all your favorites. Ramon Foster, Coach Mack, Mike Keith, who joins the show momentarily, Red Bryan, Amy Wells, everybody. Coverage starts at 6 for Titans radio. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Eight a.m. in Nashville as the second half of the show begins already. Welcome into RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will, brewed by 8th and Roast with Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson. Robert Walsh, our producer. I'm Will Bowling. The Tennessee Titans make JC Latham their new left tackle last night. And joining us right now on the phones, he is the voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. Mike, a very good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, sir.
What was your initial reaction last night at the JC Latham pick?
Thrilled. Just thrilled. I felt as though everything pointed towards offensive line for how everything would fall. Doing the math, didn't think a trade back was going to happen. And I think it proved out that there just wasn't much of a market for trade backs early in the draft. There were going to have to be over-the-top offers, and they didn't come. I didn't think Marvin Harrison would get to us. I didn't think Malik Neighbors would get to us. They didn't. So I thought it was going to be Alter Latham. I was going to be thrilled with either one. And obviously to get JC Latham is just fantastic. And if what Diana Rossini is reporting is true, that he was Bill Callahan's favorite, then that makes it all the better.
And that was my next question, Mike. You told us Monday we were going to learn what Bill Callahan wanted in an offensive lineman for the Tennessee Titans. What about JC Latham makes him a Bill Callahan guy, in your opinion?
I think it just really, I mean, this is going to be the most non-analytical point that you'll hear on this, because I think he's just really big and good. And they used to say to Mr. Adams when they were telling him back when we were going to make a draft pick, what we were going to do, Mr. Adams' question to whomever was telling him is he good? and it's like, you know what? I mean, you kind of just really start there. He's just really big and he's really good, and he sort of fits the mindset of what we want to be. He clearly likes to play. He's been a big-time prospect. He's played for a big-time program with tremendous expectations. And, I just think that when it comes down to it, we're just really excited to have him and to see what Bill Callahan can do with an athlete that is just so unusual. I mean, you just don't see, they're big guys, but they're not big guys like this with all of the different, the hands and the arm length and the wingspan and the feet that he can move. And, he's nearly 6'6". I mean, this is something quite different. He and Alt were different types of players, because they are different sizes, but they were unusually talented skill sets that every great tackle prospect doesn't have. This guy has it. So, I just think that's what's most exciting.
We ended up talking to Rand last night about, the reaction of how they got JC Latham, and one of the things that he mentioned, Mike, was he'll be one of the first guys to get off the bus. Now, I know he still got to go play, but what does that presence mean as far as the size, the build, the presence of a guy like JC Latham for this offensive line and team?
Well, let's talk about what that is and what that means for maybe people who don't quite understand why the getting off the bus thing is a big deal. The theory from really since football started is if you have a really good-looking team getting off the bus, then it's not only intimidating, literally, but it really says a lot about the quality of athlete that you have. And you look at what Alabama and Georgia and LSU in particular in recent years have looked like getting off the bus. Man, it's pretty. It's pretty because you say these guys, it's athlete after unusually big and impressive and all of this. And there are NFL teams like that too. And, what you did last night is you got another guy who's an offensive line version of Jeff Simmons. You got that guy. And I think this team wants to look more like that, wants to look more like an AFC North team, to be bigger. Not because they want to run the ball 80 times, but because they want to have the ability to do what they want to do. They want to be able to dictate. They want athletes who are not only athletic, but impressive enough physically that they give you the ability to dictate. You're not going to get to our quarterback, and we're going to run when we want to run. And that's what the offensive line is going to be all about. And so, I think that's something that the Titans have done. They've done. Lloyd Cushenberry at center is that type of player at 6'4", 315. And I think you saw it again with JC Latham. He is, Rand may or may not be serious about it being the first guy off the bus, but you get it. And in football terms, that's a very, very good thing.
It is. It's changing your image a little bit, man, is where you got to get to. But one thing that JC Latham provides you, because here's the situation, Mike, and of course I think also, but when Alt goes off the board, I think some people hearts drop to their stomach because, hey, that's who we've been told that we're supposed to get the entire pre-draft movement, right? But when you look at what this team still want to and needs to do also is to have a guy that can pave a way, because there's no way you go pay a running back like Tony Pollard and have all the eccentric things that Tajay Spears can do and not still be able and capable of running the ball. When you look at JC Latham's tape as far as running the ball, Mike, you probably give the edge to JC Latham as opposed to Alt, and there's no knock to either one of them.
Right. I think both would have been outstanding. Yeah, and I think both. I think Alt will have a great career with the Chargers. Sometimes on a day like today, you get on and go, oh, well, our guy's so much better. No, he's a really good player too. But JC is, he's a real fit for us. The same way Alt would have been, and maybe he ends up being a better fit because I think Alt's going to play right tackle with the Chargers. JC's going to play on the left side. And what you also like here too is that he and Peter Skoronski playing together, they're going to play together for 4 years, which is fantastic. They may play together for 10 years, but for at least that 4-year period, while you are paying them first-round pick money, which is super money, it's not free agent money. And so you've taken a very important position, and from a cap standpoint, you've put yourself in a spot where 2 of your 3 best offensive linemen on paper are not free agent pays, which means you can take other cap resources and put it in other places to keep people or go out and get parts. That's excellent drafting. That's excellent. And if you're picking 7th, that's what you had to come away from this with. You had to come away for another structural, foundational piece, a player who's going to be one of your best, and he needs to be quickly, but also a piece that gives you flexibility to improve parts in other areas because other financial resources become available. That's a good draft.
Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, joining us on RKW. Mike, there are always the questions of, he played mainly right tackle at Alabama. Look, this is a kid who played left tackle primarily in his high school years, says he's been training in the offseason, ready to move back. But most of all, Mike, the importance of having Bill, we've said it time and time again, like he has a past of moving guys from the right to the left and having success.
I've seen it throughout the time that I've been around football. And I've been around great offensive line coaches. I've been around 3 of them. Philip Fulmer at Tennessee, Mike Munchak with the Titans, and now Bill Callahan. And Kayla, what they always do, the really great ones, is they cross-train. They consistently cross-train. Guys will play left tackle and right tackle. A guy will play right tackle and left guard. Or he'll play all 5 positions. I mean, they will consistently look for the 5, understanding that you're going to be in situations where you're going to have to play musical chairs with your offensive linemen, and you want to get your best 5 on the field because there will be some players that can only play one spot. That's all. There'll be a guy on your roster, and he can only help you at left guard. That's it. So if he can help you at left guard, you might have to move your left guard to right tackle if the right tackle gets hurt. That's cross-training. And Philip Fulmer, Mike Munchak, and Bill Callahan consistently give these guys the ability to see other scenarios and know how the other positions work. That's what Bill Callahan has done. And Latham is an athlete. He was really a defensive lineman in Wisconsin in high school and was supposedly pretty good. Goes to IMG, they make him a full-time left tackle. He's the number 1 prospect in America. Goes to Alabama. Nick Saban wanted him, among others. And goes to Alabama, and he ends up moving to the right side because Evan Neal's the left tackle. Okay, fine, put me on the right side. I don't care. And he's also 21. So it's not like he's played right tackle. It's not like he's 34 and he's played right tackle for 20 years of his life. He'll be fine. I mean, it's not as big. Just because he had RT next to his name doesn't mean he's forever locked into one position. This will work out just fine. Trust Bill Callahan.
Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, is our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Mike, as you look ahead to night 2 of the draft, I know we spoke earlier this week about the opportunity for the Titans to trade back from pick number 38. How much more difficult does that become now that all 6 quarterbacks went so quickly and all of a sudden Michael Penix is an Atlanta Falcon with the number 8 pick overall?
You talk about tonight, how difficult does it become?
Yeah, trading back from 38.
I don't think, it's a good question, Will, but I don't think it's probably a factor because I feel like everybody thought we were going to have 6 quarterbacks at least in the first 20 or 25.
Sure.
So I think that was sort of an accepted truth in this draft. The Titans have the 6th pick of the 2nd round. So take last night out, throw it away, and tonight's the first night of the draft. They have the 6th pick. Now what comes into focus are the positions that are thin. And what I mean by that is defensive line, off-ball linebacker, safety, tight end, running back to a certain extent, not totally. But if you want to grab the best player at one of the positions that are thin, you got to grab early tonight. So
now all these other spots come into being. Not only do you get the really good players who didn't go in night one, who you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's here. You also say, man, I need a off-ball linebacker badly. Let's go grab one. Let's trade up to 34 and grab one. Just like we traded up to 33 last year to go get Will Levis. So you're after the, there are two pools, and that is the pool of people who want to go grab one of the guys who fell in the first round, supposedly, and then the pool of people who need a player at a position or who covet a player at a position and rank one guy so much more highly at that spot than anybody else. Example, Brock Bowers at the tight end position. The tight end position was Brock Bowers and then a massive drop-off. Well, you're into this guy and then a massive drop-off at certain positions. So I think if the Titans want to stick and pick, it's going to be interesting to see what they do positionally. I think there will be a better opportunity to trade back tonight because teams don't have to give up as much. We speculated before the draft that there would be less chaos at the top of the first round because the prices were too expensive. That turned out to be true. The prices tonight, Will Bowling, will not be as expensive. And so you will be able to get up and get somebody. So could the Titans fall back a few spots, end up with their player, and maybe pick up an extra 4? And then they'd have 2 4s to pick, or they could take the 2 4s, put them together, and move back into the third round late to get a player. I think there will be a lot more sort of movement tonight for all of those reasons. Long answer to your question. I apologize.
That's perfect.
Mike, if you look at some of those players available right now, if they do stick and pick at 38, anybody who jumps out at you in terms of defensive linemen?
Yeah, they're a bunch. There are a bunch that stick out to me because we've heard so much through the draft process. But here's where we're going to find out what's real, Kayla. This is where we're going to find out what teams are really worried about, because now that you get into this part of the draft and the overall storylines that have been out there about certain guys. There are going to be all kinds of theories today about why a certain group of guys fell. And then there going to be storylines about some of the medicals, which will be a big part of that. And then we're going to see, do people care about short arms? Do people care about, how much are people worried about maturity in certain players? How much do things not really, how many teams are comfortable with certain things? Leatu Latu lasted until 15th last night. And the reason is because of the neck. I mean, he was the first defensive player off the board, and he's outstanding. Hate that we're going to have to play against him twice a year. But now some of those flashing lights go off even more, and we're going to find out what's real. On paper, as just somebody who follows the draft, I got 4 or 5 defensive linemen. Oh, yeah, but I promise you that either from a coaching standpoint, they don't like how this guy plays, he doesn't fit a scheme, or some of the stories that are out there, he's got a shoulder that's not good that everybody's worried about. He's got a knee that's not good. All of these things will come into play tonight. And, when it's all sussed out at the end of this weekend, we certainly know a lot more about why things will have gone on like they did. But, the lying season part of it, about from the players' standpoint, they become truths tonight into the first part of tomorrow.
You mentioned truth, Mike. We had a conversation last night about the up until Quinyon Mitchell, every single pick was from a big D1 school. Mm-hmm. the reality of college football being using smaller schools to be feeder schools, Mike, how do you break that down as we talk about Jarrett Verse, we talk about Quinyon Mitchell and others that have gone to bigger universities and showed up and became first-round picks?
Coach Mack hit it on the head. He said, the Power 5 schools are using other programs almost as feeder programs. And how many guys, just guys, are so different physically at age 18 to 22? And I'm just talking about regular people that we went to school with, not players, just people. Well, and certainly you take into account the player part of that, Ramon. I mean, suddenly you're talking about people who keep growing. Joe Alt kept growing. He gained 40 pounds. That happened. Jaden Daniels gained 20 pounds quite naturally in the 2 years he spent at LSU. He filled out. And that part of it, along with guys moving up to other programs, but moving when they're 22 in some cases, it's produced a new trend in all of this. It's fascinating. I mean, the whole thing is really fascinating because the college game, quite literally, has a free agency element that is more open than the NFL. Because the thing is, you can't leave an NFL team just whenever you want to. You can leave a college basically whenever you want to right now and move up. So at the end of year 3, if you say, hey, I've turned out to be a lot better than anybody thought. This team didn't offer me coming out of high school, but they're offering me now. I am going there. And it's the new reality that continues, I think, to separate some things for pro teams prospect-wise because they're able to more fully see what guys really are. The evaluation process becomes easier due to the fact that they're able to see full development because, hey, Jarrett Verse played at Albany, but then he also played at Florida State. I'm not just saying went to school there. He got a ton of snaps. Bo Nix started 61 games. 61 games. Man, the number one thing is still tape. And you've got more tape than ever on prospects now with all the movement.
Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. Great stuff, as always, at TENN Voice, where you find him on Twitter. Mike, not that you needed the confirmation from us, but we had Brent Hubbs on in the last hour. It's kind of like when a pitcher does a side session in the bullpen, warm up the arm a little bit before the big league appearance tonight on Titans Radio. Excited to listen to him join the fold and excited to listen to more coverage coming up tonight.
Well, it's funny because we had him last year for day 2. And when day 2 was over, Coach Mack just immediately invited him back for next year. Perfect. So he's been booked for a year, and Brent's crazy like us. He loves the draft. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun because these backstories are fascinating, and he knows every backstory, and we're excited to have him tonight. Join our crew who, Ramon, great job last night. It was fantastic listening to you talk about all this, especially having a chance to talk about JC Latham.
And I appreciate that, Mike. Got to do it 2 times in a row. This is new for me, too. Hubbs thought he was doing it solo without me. I told him, no, you guys traded me for Chipotle.
Yeah,
I'll be here.
He gave you no pub on the socials. I was very surprised.
Crazy.
Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, our guest. Mike, excellent stuff as always last night. Excited to listen tonight, and thank you as always for the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
Sir. There's Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. We'll react to that, give you your chance to react to what Mike Keith says. 615-737-1045 coming up next.
It's Ramon Foster for Wesley Mortgage. I'll give you the website right now. It's whywesley.com. WHYWESLEY.com. All right. And I'm going to start with the owner, Chuck McDowell, man. He's a local Nashville native. that cares about his community and is proud to serve it also. Chuck reinvests in the people and the places that make Nashville such a wonderful place. While other mortgage companies are downsizing, Chuck McDowell and the Wesley Mortgage team are rapidly expanding in Nashville, keeping people working in the careers that they love, and they will love to have you join their team, which is why I gave you that website. Use that. Chuck and the leadership team at Wesley Mortgage have a support system in place to help you succeed in the mortgage business, ensuring your loans close on time, making sure you get paid, giving you the time to build your businesses back and bring back the fun to the mortgage profession. With unique networking opportunities with the Tennessee Titans and the Music City Grand Prix, they make closing deals and building relationships fun again. So if you're in the mortgage industry and you're tired of the grind, tired of pressure, tired of micromanaging everything to make sure your clients get handled correctly, then you owe it to yourself to go visit whywesley.com.
This is your Off the Track Racing Report, brought to you by Nissan of Rivergate.
Will it be Martin at the Monster Mile? The NASCAR Cup Series heads to Dover this weekend for the Worth 400 on the famed Monster Mile. It is a track that Martin Truex Jr. knows very well. It's his home track, and he is a four-time winner there. A victory on Sunday would be his first of the season. Despite being winless so far, he is currently in second place in the driver's standings, trailing only Kyle Larson. Speaking of Larson, Dover is one of his best tracks too. He has led more laps at Dover than any other track on the Cup circuit. The Worth 400 is set for a 1 p.m. broadcast start on FS1. Meanwhile, the IndyCar Series heads to Birmingham, Alabama for the Children's of Alabama Grand Prix. It's slated for a noon broadcast start on Sunday on NBC.
This has been your Off the Track Racing Report, brought to you by Nissan of Rivergate. Have you ever noticed how many car dealerships there are in the Middle Tennessee area, and they all tell you they have the largest selection and the best prices in town? I'm Liz Allison. I'm here to tell you how to make your life easier. Head straight to Nissan of Rivergate. They truly have the largest selection and the best prices in town. I know this because I'm on car 3 from Bob McCracken and his team at Nissan of Rivergate. Cut out the dealership hopping and make Nissan of Rivergate your only stop. Nissan of Rivergate, 1550 Gallatin Pike North in Madison. NissanofRivergate.com.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And if you want to react to the JC Latham pick, anything you liked or did not like last night of the NFL draft, you can do so now at 615-737-1045. What do you feel like you have learned in the last 12 hours about JC Latham that you like? Open to the floor.
We're talking about calls.
What have you learned about JC Latham from us?
From us is going back to Mike. I got to use Mike Keefe here for a second. Mike Keefe said it, and then he mentioned Coach Foreman, he mentioned Mike Munchak, he mentioned Bill Callahan. You got to have, what did he call it, position-flexible guys. And that was something that I ain't even think about for myself. Like when I got to UT, I played tackle, then they moved me over to left. And then my first start was at guard. Some guys do have positions that they're stuck in. David DeCastro was a right guard. Ronnie Stanley is a left tackle. DeBrickashaw Ferguson, a left tackle. Joe Thomas is a left tackle. Some guys are just stuck at their positions, right? But for the most part, most offensive linemen, they carry 3 different hats. Right and left, and maybe interior. That's what you do. And I think that's when you look at JC Latham's situation and say, well, we drafted a right tackle. That's where he played. That's true. But most offensive linemen that I know are position flexible. I think that's the unique situation about this one right now. If you're trying to find out, all right, well, what are we doing here drafting the right tackle? No, you drafted a football player that's going to be able to play left tackle and probably exceed your expectation, because right now, a lot of you guys, and it's easy to be negative. It's so easy because when you're negative and you end up being right in the back end, you're the first, I told you so. It ain't got to be like that sometimes. Like, it's all right to say, all right, we're going to see how this unfolds. Whether he's a really good left tackle or you move him over to the right, you got a football player. Now, I don't think people realize that sometimes when you're speaking about O-line, because other people don't change. Receivers, that's what they're going to do. Tight ends is what they do, right? But it's okay to say, all right, we're going to move this guy because he's moldable. And I think that, to me, is one of the more unique things about what Mike had to say in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you keep hearing from people, physicality of this guy. He's a mauler. He's a monster. I mean, whatever. He's a bulldozer. Whatever you want to use. You clearly knew that if you had just done some outside, looking at what he does as a player. But the more and more you hear about this guy, whether it be, from Mike Keith or just some of the articles that are coming out from people who have covered him at Alabama or even early in his days in Wisconsin, where, mind you, Mike Keith brought up the point that he was a 2-year starter on the defensive line. Mm-hmm. You talk about versatility with the player nowadays. You don't only want that at your skill positions, you want that at every position almost. And being a versatile player, as we're learning more and more about this guy, I think it makes it more of a realistic situation that he's going to be able to successfully move to the left side, which, again, he played at IMG for 2 years. And he's going to be able to do it well because he's going to put in the time. That's what we've learned. This guy has not missed a practice, right? This guy had already sat down 2 hours with Bill Callahan on his top 30 visit and pretty much talked about everything there had to do with moving a right tackle to left tackle. I mean, Bill Callahan went over that, all the guys he did that with the Browns, and said that is the expectation for you. I just think you're going to get a guy, from what we're continuing to learn, that is going to have the mentality, have the work ethic, and have the tools to be able to do it for a long time in this league. And you're right. If something happens and they want to move him to the other side, he can do it.
Let's go to Chris in Clarksville, where you can join us on the phone line, 615-737-1045. Hey, Chris.
Morning, guys. How we doing?
Great.
Awesome. So I'll go ahead and admit, when Alt was taken at 5, I got a little bit worried because, I mean, this is the guy that we were kind of married to as a prospect and everything heading into this whole off-season planning and everything, and like for preparing for the draft. But I love how they just they didn't panic. They went ahead and pivoted to JC Latham. From the sounds of it, they didn't even pivot. That might have been their guy all along. We don't know. But But yeah, I feel like I really like JC Latham. I love him even more as a player. The more I have heard about him over the past 24 hours, because he's gained more steam, and then just the overall like what Bill Callahan can do as far as like moving him from the right to the left side. I do feel comfortable with that, and I feel like he can thrive in that role. So yeah, I love the pick. He's a mauler at the line, and for anybody who's just saying like, oh, they should have traded down, like you got to have the right deal in place to be able to do that. And he could have been the guy. Like Carthon said, he was if a list did exist where there's a prospect that they wouldn't trade down to move off of and everything, he would have been on that list. So I'm glad they got Latham at the end of the day. And as far as day 2 prospects go, I'd love to see them trade down from 38, but if they had to stay there, a dream scenario would be A.D. Mitchell from Texas, but I think he goes out of Buffalo or New England to start in day 2 to start tonight. But the two other guys I'd like to look at would be Jerzon Newton from Illinois at D tackle to pair with Jeffrey Simmons, or Junior Colson from Michigan to go at linebacker. And that's all I have to say. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Chris.
Nice, Chris.
Appreciate the call. I think the calls have gotten significantly more positive as the show's continued. Yeah. I thought we were in for a long morning when we started the show this morning at 6:20, and there was not a single positive call in all of them.
And I understand, too, real quick, we didn't maybe talk about JC Latham as much during the entire draft process. And so maybe you didn't know as much. And we're learning, too, the more we dig deeper into it and we hear from him. And so it does make it more understandable once you start hearing about the things that he's done and how he's done it at a high level. And that's the beauty of the draft, right? Sometimes you focus on guys and you learn more about those players and you don't get them. But hell, now you know about all the players in the league leading up to it, and you got your guy here and you're learning about him right now.
No, 100%. After we're done, because I love that you guys stream us, but there's an entire game, and I like watching the games in sequence. The LSU Bama game last year, you get to see the side and the back of the plays, okay? JC Latham's on there. There was 1 or 2 plays, of course. He got beat inside but didn't give up a sack. That's coachable. You look at him 1 or 2 times, hands. I think he got a hole in at the end of the half. It was 2 seconds left on the clock. They was about to take a shot. So, of course, they was peeling their heads back to go rush the quarterback in those moments right there. There is tape out there for you to watch the guy that you just drafted. I just quote tweeted a tweet of him just finishing down the field. When you look at the 2 tapes, again, this is what I would say between Alt and JC Latham. You're going to see more finish, more dog, more grit.
615-737-1045. More of your reaction coming up next. And since there has never been a perfect NFL prospect, what are the weaknesses? What are the negatives? Not to be overly negative, but what is JC Latham going to have to get better at when he becomes a Tennessee Titan? We have that for you next.
Hey, the future of medicine is here. We're talking about QC Kinetics. As you know, we talk about it a lot on this show because QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in the most exciting revolution in pain management we've seen in decades, and it's regenerative medicine. If you're tired of those achy joints, hey, if your joint pain is keeping you from what you love to do, you need to call QC Kinetics today. Surgery, steroids, drugs, those are all in the past. Doors shut on that. These are no longer your best options, but regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is, and it's transforming lives with innovative treatments that deliver the lasting results that you want. We're talking about natural biologics here, using your body's own power to repair and restore that damaged tissue. So if you want relief from a needle and not a knife, call QC Kinetics today to learn more about some exciting options. You can call them for a free consultation. It's easy. It's 615-249-4024. Call QC Kinetics at 615-249-4024.
Wrapping up hour number 3 on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, and RKW, as always, is brewed by 8th and Roast. Your reaction to JC Latham for the next half hour at 615-737-1045. Mike Golic Jr., former Notre Dame lineman, Gojo and Golic on the DraftKings Network. He'll join us at 9:20, breaking down moving from right to left tackle and what he sees on film in new Titan JC Latham. Looking back to calls in a minute, but first I wanted to get into JC Latham's weaknesses. And again, like I said before the break, not to be overly negative about him as a prospect, but simply because there has never been a flawless college prospect. Right. Even as can't miss as Andrew Luck was, as Peyton Manning was, as Eric Berry. Remember him being a 9.9 out of 10, essentially, coming out of Tennessee when he was drafted in the top 10 by the Chiefs. When you look at JC Latham and his resume, what's the first thing that he's going to need to work on?
Redirecting. What does that mean? As far as him setting and a guy rush upfield and go inside real quick. Make sure that his power step is ready to go up into the line of scrimmage and that his hands placement is good. Also, being capable at all times to handle the speed rusher. That's always going to be a problem for young offensive linemen, too, is having the ability to adjust to the NFL speed of getting off the line of scrimmage. He does well. His hips are really good. I don't want to say flawless because that makes him perfect right there. And also not being a leaner in the run game. Guys who are really good in the run sometimes get overly aggressive in those types of situations right there. And the other one is, too, not relying solely on the strength of your hands. Again, you don't have to worry about Olu Fashanu because, again, your guy got real big hands as far as JC Latham's concerned, okay?
Second biggest in the draft.
And that can somehow get you in trouble because if I can grab you, then it looks like I'm holding you in those moments right there. He does have, at times, a tendency to show you how much he does in the weight room. And that's a great thing because that aggressiveness is what you want. But depending on how certain guys sell it, it could be looked at, oh, he's holding me, and you don't want that reputation right there. Those are some of the things I think. The speed's there, physicality is there, the hands there, the technique is there. The biggest thing I've seen on his tape and watching him is, of course, the redirecting rusher. Mm-hmm. And that's something I had to fix. That's something that a lot of guys' quickest way to the quarterback is what? Beat him inside.
I would say penalties, you got to cut down. Definitely. That's something that kind of plagued him.
The grabbiness, right?
You're exactly right. And when this was addressed yesterday and asked to Brian Callahan, you know, they looked at L'Jarius Sneed in terms of a guy who plays so physically, and you look at the penalties that L'Jarius Sneed gets to sometimes, right? Yeah. And he's a veteran player. With this, I think it just depends on what those types of things are. And you were saying with the holding calls, let's say, that's usually a technique issue, he said, and those are coachable. And I think if anybody is going to be able to limit this type of stuff, and you're not going to have no penalties, like that means you're not playing football, right?
Right.
But if anyone's going to help do that, it's going to be Bill Callahan. Those are the things you look at with this guy, and these are the weaknesses. It's like, okay, but those are fixable weaknesses. They are. So that was my big one from JC.
615-737-1045. The specific on penalties, like you said, 18 penalties over his 2 seasons as a starter, including 7 false starts and 6 holding calls.
Oh, we can get that false start. You know what happened on false starts? $500 fine from the room.
There you go.
Coach, come on, man. That's $500. Oh, you want to argue it? That's another $200.
Him and Dylan Radins can have the same training in that.
Yeah.
For real.
And cutting down on the false starts, considering Dylan Radins, I think, had 11 penalties last season.
And he was kind of switching
most of them
over.
false starts.
Yeah.
False start is a concentration thing.
Yeah. Let's go to the phones. Jordan is in Nashville. Hey, Jordan.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Great.
Good morning.
Hey, I'm not going to lie. I was fully sold on Joe Alt. So when the Chargers took him, I was kind of like, what happens now? And then, ensues the Malik Neighbors pick. But, I like the pick. And, they say it's not the sexiest pick, but, it makes it a lot better when a guy that you pick is there to represent your team and he's all iced out and, has a lot of, attitude and swagger about him. So I like the pick. But then my other thing is, the Joe Alt pick really confuses me. And it also, when you see him, when he got picked, he didn't look excited. Mm-hmm. But I'm just like, what are they going to do at wide receiver? So that pick confused me. And then the Atlanta thing, I think, kind of hurt the trade value because people are like, why didn't they trade back? But I don't think there was a lot of phone calls or like what they were going to give up for trading back until, Atlanta picked the quarterback, and then, the Vikings were like, okay, we need to move up. But, thanks for taking my call.
No doubt.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jordan.
Jordan sound like he's talked to some people on some stuff. I'll say this. That video was pointed out to me as far as Joe Alt being selected to the Chargers. It was unique. Let's just say that.
I think from everything we have heard, what you saw was legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that everyone was maybe a bit surprised.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we can leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that.
From conversations we've had, I do think that there was an expectation on both ends that Joe Alt would have been a good fit here.
Sure.
From the Joe Alt camp and from the Titans. I mean,
And
how
his
could you not?
reaction was unique.
I don't know if his girlfriend or wife sitting next to him too had the same look in her eye, like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And he's also not knowing exactly what's going to happen when he goes over there because he is a left tackle. They kind of have their left tackle. So does he go to right? And the same conversation you're trying to have here, it's worse over there, in my opinion, on moving him over.
I'm with you.
615-737-1045. Brent Hubbs of AllQuest, who will join Titans radio coverage tonight, was on our show earlier this morning, and I thought had a very interesting point about what separated JC Latham at 18 years old from a lot of his peers coming out of high school at IMG Academy. We'll play you that audio coming up next. We'll also take a look at the list of players available to the Titans in the second round. Who is at the top of your wish list with the number 38 overall pick as Hour 4 begins next.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, telling you right now for the rest of this month, y'all got to get on this, all right? You can save with Hiller, all right? From now until the end of this month, April 30th, take advantage of big savings on home systems where you can enjoy up to $1,500 off select new HVAC systems, whole home water filtration and discalers, or select new whole home generators. If you've been waiting for the right time to upgrade or replace your system, stop waiting. Now is the time, especially this month, all right? So visit happyhiller.com today for details.
What's going on? 9:01. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Titans have their left tackle, selecting Alabama offensive tackle JC Latham, who spent most of his time in college on the right side, but head coach Brian Callahan says it won't be an issue for him to start on the left.
He sees himself as a left tackle. I mean, they all do. But he felt like that's the way that it happened in Alabama. They were trying to get their best five, and he was comfortable doing it. He played on the right side. He was left tackle in high school. So that part of it, he almost expected it, which is the attitude you want guys to have. I think he possesses the requisite traits to do it. I mean,
Day 2 starts today with the Bills at 33. Titans aren't far behind that with the 38th overall pick. Plenty of talent left on the board. Cooper DeJean, cornerback from Iowa. You've also got Texas wide receiver Adonai Mitchell and Illinois defensive lineman Johnny Newton. Titans radio coverage of the draft starts back up at 6 o'clock with all your favorites, Coach Mack, Rhett Bryan, Mike Keith, Ramon Foster, Amy Wells, the whole gang. Everybody's involved, and that coverage starts tonight at 6 o'clock. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Fourth and final hour of the show, final hour of NFL Draft Week on RKW. Ramon, Kayla, and Will is brewed by 8th and Roast. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh making the show happen. I'm Will Bowling. Coming up in 20 minutes, Mike Golic Jr. of Gojo and Golic on the DraftKings Network, former offensive lineman himself. He will have lots of thoughts and takeaways from JC Latham's tape, from what he likes, what he doesn't like, and how one moves from the right side to the left side. We'll do that coming up with Mike Golic Jr. at 9:20. Your phone calls throughout the last hour. We'll get as many of them in as we can at 615-737-1045. But first, guys, I wanted to go back to something Brent Hubbs of VolQuest said earlier this morning on the show as it pertains to high school offensive linemen. And Brent Hubbs will be on tonight's Titans radio coverage here that begins at 6 p.m. I thought this was interesting about the technique JC Latham played with as a high schooler that many good linemen coming out of high school do not have. This was Brent Hubbs.
Well, I mean, he had all of the physicality. I mean, he wasn't strong enough, but you could see just how heavy he played with his hands. He had a great trunk, but he was well coached coming out of high school. He wasn't a guy who just pushed people over. I think you're always looking, and I think high school offensive linemen are hard to evaluate for the most part, because are they playing against a guy? Are they playing against competition that challenges them? Are they just playing against some guys they can basically take one arm and kind of push them over and be done, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that he's a guy who played with technique coming out of high school. He was developed, but he had good heavy hands, strong hands, a good trunk. I mean, you just looked at him and went, there's no way that guy's not going to be a good football player. And everybody had that one right. He's a good football player, and he's going to be a good NFL football player, and a great system with a really good offensive line coach at a franchise that has a great need for offensive line. I mean, for as good of a fit as it is for the Tennessee Titans because of what they need, it's a great fit for JC Latham to come to Nashville.
I like that about playing with technique in high school. And I remember one prospect, I'm going to be polite and not name them, coming out of high school who was not a successful college offensive lineman, who played in a lower division and was forklifting 220-pound defensive linemen in high school, respectfully. Because he didn't have to play with a lot of technique. He was 60 to 70 pounds bigger than the biggest defensive lineman that guy would play on a week-to-week basis. JC Latham at IMG Academy and at Alabama has played the best at every level, and the Titans like it.
They do. And truthfully, you see his technique comes out on his tape. His combination blocks, they're like, we're going to talk about him protecting the quarterback and stuff like that for years to come, right? That's going to be one of his biggest conversation pieces is, he protects the But if you look at his technique in the run game, how he combination blocks with the guards on the inside of him, how he also doesn't leave too early when he's blocking with the tight ends. Technique matters. You win a lot that way when you're in really good position. And if he's been getting that since high school, I mean, he's got a step above a lot of other guys. Heck, there are dudes that go to the NFL right now. Dylan Radins that need technique issues, right? NPF that need technique help, right? This guy's more polished, higher floor is what I would tell you is what you're getting. And no matter what side he's playing left side. No matter what side he eventually ends up on, he's playing on the left side. But what I'm telling you is this. I'm trying to drive this home right here. Technique matters. You got one of the best technical coaches in the entire NFL in Bill Callahan.
Yeah, and I thank you for saying that because that segues into what I was going to say, in terms of Bill Callahan and what he prefers in coaching in an offensive lineman. Sometimes you're given what you're given and you've got to get the most out of them. Sometimes you kind of have an idea of what you want, and he likes those big bodies. I think it's almost like a challenge for Bill Callahan, like DeJuan Jones last year. Hey, if anyone was a project last year, and we could say it firsthand, we were at the Senior Bowl, not this past year, but the year before, and we were all like, he is a massive human being, but what could you really get out of him? And he was talked to as a project. He went a lot lower, and he ended up starting for the Cleveland Browns last year at a point when I think Jack Conklin went down, and he got the most out of DeJuan Jones. And that was a guy who was, I think, more of a project more than anything than a guy like you're seeing here in JC Latham. But that's just another example of Bill being able to do Bill things.
The comparison between those two, DeJuan Jones was picked 112th overall, 4th-round pick, but the size is similar, certainly. Taller prospect, DeJuan Jones, at 6'8", 375 pounds for DeJuan Jones. JC Latham, 6'5.5", 342 pounds, what he weighed in at the combine. I think it's a good comparison, though.
It is.
Certainly. That is the kind of lineman that Bill Callahan has made a career out of making good. Big body dudes that he hones in on the technique with. Yeah. I like it.
I do too.
Gerardo in Amarillo.
Oh, man.
Joins us this morning. What's up, Gerardo?
What's up, Gerardo?
Good morning. Y'all tighten up. Hey, Mo, real quick, bud. I got a few things, so I'm going to go real fast. But, Mo, man, big props to y'all last night.
Yes.
Great product every year you guys put out, man. Seriously, it's especially being down here in Amarillo. I had a few buddies come over and watch the draft, and even they were like, "Hey, man, just put it back on that stream we were watching on the zone because it's for real." So, good big props, man. You guys always do good. But
I'll overnight your check. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you, man. But hey, the more and more I keep going down this TK rabbit hole, the more and more I'm loving it because I'm not gonna lie, man. I was upset at the time we didn't take Bowers was wrong, but. It's like I told my wife last night when she asked me why I looked so upset at the time. It's like us going to the car dealership, and we're needing a minivan for the family, but right next to it, there's a sexy red Ferrari that's available to us that we can afford. But we take what we need at the time. But hey, this minivan, we drove off the lot. It's looking more and more like a nice, big, tough Tahoe. And whenever we took Bill Callahan, man, from Cleveland, I'm not gonna lie, I'm the kind of fan that likes to go and to just soak in other teams' fans' tears. And they were all so upset on Reddit, the Cleveland Browns, that we took him. That if that man says he loves him and he's the one guy that he wanted, who am I to say over here being a fan that it wasn't the right pick? Yeah. So trusting Bill, trusting what Rand's cooking up, and let's go, baby. Let's go. Tighten up, y'all.
I like it.
Preach.
Gerardo.
Good call from Gerardo.
Amarillo by morning.
Yay, man. That's
Love
awesome right there.
Who's the first name on your wish list today for the Titans at pick 38, or is a trade at the top of your wish list?
First guy, we said Junior Colson earlier. Let me look at this top 100 who's available too, man. And I guess it's where do you think you need the most help? I think that's the biggest issue. Is it a young wide receiver you want to build for the future with? Is it an interior D lineman or is it another edge guy? I'll say this. If you want to pair young to young and make sure JC Latham is challenged, you might go after a young edge, but I don't know who's the guy that's capable of being those types of dudes at this part of the draft. I throw out guys like, for sure, Cooper DeJean is there. If you look at him, Johnny Newton out of Illinois is still there. You got a few guys that are around that you take a chance on and I think get a good bit of production out of, man. We're good on the offense. I love to see it go defensive more than anything.
That's why I'm with you. I'm with you on that just because it hurts not to have a third-round pick, and that's why Mike Keith, he did put out the option of possibly trading back if there is a scenario where someone's willing to trade with them. I would be more than happy with that situation to be able to maybe get another offensive guy in the third round before you kind of get the fourth round and beyond where we know the talent drops off a little bit. But I think it's important to go with defense if you're going to stick and pick at 38. You talk about Junior Colson, inside linebacker position. I think it has to be, addressed at some point. I don't necessarily think they'll go cornerback, but if there's a really good one still there. Kool-Aid McKinstry. How can you maybe pass up on a guy like that if he's there?
Him and Cooper DeJean.
Cooper DeJean is going to be my name.
Yeah.
Y'all, you've seen it. I know you've seen
the versatility that Cooper DeJean gives you as a corner, as a safety.
Punt returner, kick returner.
I am very interested in the Cooper DeJean option for the Titans.
And Kool-Aid could do that too as a returner.
I probably would lean someone to help Jeffrey Simmons.
Okay.
At the same time, though, Cooper DeJean also is a pretty big help to Jeffrey Simmons. At the same time, I agree. I think your first pick being defense makes a lot of sense. And I think especially because you're going to see a run on defensive players early in this second night of the draft. Considering how many of them are still available, the fact that you have got the chance to get, if you think he's a safety, by far the number one safety in the draft in Cooper DeJean.
Facts.
If he's a safety. Or if he's a corner, okay, you at 38 get maybe the second or third best corner in the draft. By some people, you might get the best corner in the draft in Cooper DeJean. I think that's what's interesting when Mike Keith earlier talks about teams wanting players at positions of value early on. The value of DeJean at 38 would be tremendous. I don't know if he's going to be even there at 38.
But here's the thing, though. So you go for who you feel like is going to be awesome and right for you at this time, because we saw two guys last night I think that could have been waited on. One of them was the edge from Missouri.
Darius Robinson.
Yeah. They ended up going in the first round. And another one was Xavier Legette.
Yep.
Right now on Dane Brugler's Beast, Xavier Legette, you know what he's ranked in his top 100?
Probably the 50s or 60s?
76.
Yeah, there you go.
They went for a guy that they fell in love with that they know is going to help them. Screw the reaching. It's the draft for a reason, right? We draft players that fit our team. That's what you got to go into this thing saying.
And also, like Mike said, guys that you know are going to be dudes that fit the culture as well, because there's really talented guys left on the board, but there's also things that he said, hey, they have defaults in terms of maybe you don't want that type of guy in terms of characteristics on your team. That does go into it.
I'm with you guys, though. Junior Colson is still at the top of my list.
Me too.
Still at the top of my list. Not just because he's a Middle Tennessee guy, but because I think he has a lot of the traits the Titans value in an inside linebacker and a guy who could wear the green dot and call plays year one.
Be great.
For this defense. Coming up next, Mike Golic Jr., Gojo and Golic on the DraftKings Network, weekdays from 7 to 9. An offensive line expert in his own right. We'll get his take on JC Latham next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson for the Wing Vision Institute, doing everything in terms of your eye health the right way, from the receptionist to the doctors there. They're going to take care of you if you're concerned about that or just haven't gotten a checkup in a while. They also do everything right in terms of your skin. That's right. They have intense pulse light treatments available. And if you don't know what that is, it's a cool thing to check out. A photofacial treatment. I've had this done several times. Really helps even out the skin. I deal with hyperpigmentation, and this is also something that helps with that long term, just evening out that skin texture. So for more on IPL treatments, along with other services at Wing Vision Institute, you can go to their website, wingvisioninstitute.com today to find out more. They also offer free online vision seminars. So if you don't necessarily want to go in the first time, you just want to get a feeling about what they do. Those take place every Tuesday. That's at 6:45 p.m. So you can RSVP, schedule your free consultation and your treatment today at wangvisioninstitute.com.
Rolling right along in hour number 4 of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW brewed up by 8th and Rose, Tremone Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined by our very good friend Mike Golic Jr. Nobody knows big dudes like Mike Golic Jr. The Titans just drafted a very big dude yesterday. What's up, Mike? How are you?
I mean, listen, I would dispute that Ramon probably knows big dudes a little bit better than I do. Ramon was a professional big dude for a long time and a damn good one, so I will always defer to the Godfather on that one. But that being said, I'm excited to be here talking horses with my friends.
That's right. The only thing better than one guy who can talk nice about big human beings is two.
It's two.
Mike.
That's a good double team right there.
Absolutely.
See, he's already in the lineman lingo, Will.
I love it.
You set him up. Hey, Mike, go. That's all you need to hear right there.
I love it. Mike, how much do you like the JC Latham fit for the Titans? What do you make of him at number 7 last night?
Yeah, so I think I like the player a lot. I think he's one that we saw him get talked about a lot more as draft season went along after the initial wave of prospects from the combine and stuff like that. Just overwhelming size, right? I remember calling their game against Texas. I'm down on the field talking to Tommy Reese, who was then the offensive coordinator, my old teammate at Notre Dame, and I'm like, Tommy, I know you coached a bunch of great, played with great offensive lines at Notre Dame, coached with some great guys, but the size of these dudes is just different. And JC Latham was the dude I was pointing at when I had that conversation with Tommy. So just a different breed of size. And I think most importantly, and this is the conversation I've had with a lot of people in the lead up to the draft, is having Bill Callahan there as the coach when you're talking about a guy that might move over to the left side, people have questions about his ability to be a true left tackle. That gets mitigated so much by the fact that you've got one of the best O-line coaches in the NFL that's going to be the one bringing him along.
Mike Golic Jr., Gojo, and Golic, DraftKings Network, 7 to 9 every weekday here in Central Time in the Music City. And Mike, when you talk about the traits that he has that you can't teach and the way Bill Callahan will be able to work with JC Latham, we've talked a lot on this show about what kind of player is Bill Callahan going to want. And Ramon's answer was big dude, size, big body. And it seems to me, from everyone who knows ball infinitely more than I do, that this is a Bill Callahan type of player. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think, so you're drafting alongside what this coach wants. And that's what you want, right? The input of someone who's going to be in charge of molding the guys at that position, given the canvas that he's used to painting with here. And then, listen, also talk about with the NFL now, offensive linemen coming into the league from programs where there is great pedigree, where you trust the coaching that they're getting in college, where, yeah, obviously Bill's got the kind of guys he likes to work with, but having someone come in who's already got that attitude of playing at a place where you had to be scheme versatile, you're getting taught quality technique, you've seen other pros coming out of that school in recent years, I think that stuff all matters. And so for JC to come out of one of the blue-chip offensive line programs of the last decade or so, that's also an important part of this. And I think you just look at the ball clay you got to work with, too. There are few people movers in this class as adept as JC Latham of just the old O-line adage, forcing a man from point A to point B against his will. You can turn on the tape time and time again, whether it's a part of double teams, whether it's soloed up, of JC Latham just walking dudes off the ball left and right. And for this Titans team that's trying to reset the foundation on the line of scrimmage, having someone like that to help be a part of that tone that you started last year with Skoronski is a real positive sign.
Mike Golic Jr. with us this morning. Mike, you mentioned something that's I think people overlook a little bit more than we should as it pertains to O-line play, physicality. You said moving people off the line is what JC Latham tapes look like, man. I know we always worry about protecting the quarterback, but explain to the people, because I can just be a talking head at times, how important is it to actually have guys that can set the tone in the run game? That way the passing game may be a little bit easier.
Yeah, and to the talking head point, listen, I like to consider myself someone with an open mind. I've been to the Sloan Analytics Conference. Guys, I love nerd stuff. And the analytical world of football would have you believe that body blows in the run game don't actually correlate statistically to improvement in the play action pass game that you want to set up with all this. As someone who has lived it to an extent, and Ramon, obviously you lived it a lot longer than I did, you know the difference in the way a D lineman comes off at the fourth quarter when you guys have been giving him work the entire game, when you've been setting him up with that stuff. There is a psychological advantage that comes with just, quite honestly, whooping someone's ass. And I do think that no matter what, no matter how much we embrace the analytical side of football, the pace and space league that it's become, there is still a premium in this sport that is based on violence of having someone who can go and inflict damage like that play after play after play.
Based on violence. My golly, it gave me chills hearing you say that, man. I appreciate you coming here with that type of energy today. You feel me? That's all we do is grunt and talk trash, okay? with that being said, the first tackle taken to somebody from your alum, man, Joe Alt. I think a lot of Titans fans' stomach somewhat dropped whenever he got picked with the Chargers. How do the Chargers handle a college left tackle that already have a Pro Bowl left tackle in-house?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. So we talked to Matt Miller, the ESPN draft analyst, on our show today, and he mentioned some of the stuff they heard around that from the Chargers camp was, hey, Rashawn Slater can play right tackle too, and he's coming up on a contract year, was a little bit down last year relative to the expectation and the performance he came into the league with. So I thought that was really interesting that they're going to take these guys in this offseason and maybe see how this slots and how the best fit is overall. I think either way, whether you've got Joe Alt, who the majority of his reps have been on the left side, making the move over to right as a young player, an incredibly talented athlete, a guy who's still got a really high ceiling in his football career just based on the amount of time he's actually been playing the position and what a capable athlete he is. Or if you move Rashawn over there, who's also a guy who I loved coming out of college, who I think does have a lot of really good ball still left in him. I think they went the right route of, hey, we're just going to take the best guys. We understand and appreciate the difficulty that comes with asking a guy to go from one side to the other. It's not diminishing that, but it's trusting their coaching, and it's believing that the best player and someone this young and talented, even though we bill him as incredibly game-ready right now too, is going to be athletic enough and coachable enough to make that switch.
Mike Golic Jr. of Gojo and Golic joining us now on RKW. So there's been some questions, obviously. You're always going to get them from fan bases when they don't get Joe Alt and they don't necessarily go with the, left tackle, proven left tackle in college in Olu Fashanu. What's maybe the difference with getting a guy like JC Latham who played more right in college compared to a guy that primarily played left throughout college?
Yeah, well, I think first off, again, going back to, I think some of the program stuff, and it's individual for everybody. Like, I had this conversation with Duke Manyweather, who coached up Olu Fashanu this offseason and trains and molds a lot of the NFL offensive linemen, in saying making that switch from right to left or the differences there are incredibly individual. So I don't want to, stray too far from that. But at the same time, Alabama is a place that we know, at least for some time, has cross-trained a lot of those guys. We've seen a bunch of their high-profile tackles move from right to left as guys age out and get drafted, and they're replaced by the next incredibly talented player that usually came up at that school. But there's no doubt there is a learning curve for that, right? And for Olu, he was a guy I wasn't surprised to see go this high. The draft cycle and the lead-up to it had not talked about him nearly as much. It had been replaced by a lot of these other incredibly talented O-line names. But Olu was the guy that probably could have been the first tackle off the board if he had decided to leave school last year the way most people thought that he was going to. So he was the guy I said after Joe Alt would have been my pick for the second O-lineman off the board. But again, a little bit of a different skill set, more of the true dancing bear pass protector, incredibly fleet of foot, a guy that's already got very pro-ready hands in there, but definitely not the same, I think, tone setter in the run game as a guy like JC is. So a lot of the rest of this class of O-line was flavor of ice cream type stuff. And Tennessee decided that their favorite flavor was going to be the road grader as opposed to Olu, who's a little bit more of the dancer.
So I don't want to call any guys vanilla, because if you're on the offensive line, you're going to be expected to play at the highest level. But when it comes to maybe the personality you bring to the line in a Lloyd Cushenberry, and we've seen it in a Peter Skoronski, what does this do for the personality of a line, adding a guy like JC Latham?
Yeah, you know what? I think every offensive line room has a lot of similar parts. Like I've always said, I meet offensive linemen everywhere I go from different schools that play in the NFL, and almost always I'm like, oh yeah, that guy would have fit in any O-line room I've been a part of there. It's a lot of similar personality types in general, but I do think, and the way I had it best described, Frank Verducci was my offensive line coach at Notre Dame my sophomore year, and he said, you got to approach the line of scrimmage every snap as a unit feeling 10 foot tall and bulletproof, feeling like you're going to be the reason on this play our offense has a chance. And for JC, who you saw during his time in Alabama, was a fiery guy for them, was a guy that helped lead the charge for that group. I do think in conjunction with a lot of the rest of that young group, obviously Lloyd's been around and played a little bit more ball at this point than some of the rest of them, but having that kind of attitude, that can be pervasive on the line, especially when things get difficult.
Mike Golic Jr., Gojo and Golic. Check out the podcast wherever you download podcasts, part of the DraftKings network. Mike, when you talk about moving from right to left, what are the biggest differences in making that adjustment, and what will allow JC Latham to make that transition smoothly, in your opinion?
Well, I think being a guy who's just incredibly physically impressive, that goes a long way, right? Like, I was a lot lesser athlete in the offensive line world. Lower body strength wasn't my fortitude, and so I had to think about everything when I would move from left to right or move inside to outside like I had to do trying to make it in the NFL, where for me it was, hey, where am I putting my weight before the snap? What are my, pathways looking like here? What do my steps look like? I had to spend a lot of time focusing on that stuff because when I was a lesser athlete, the margins were a lot more slim for me in what I had to do to put myself in any position to have success in the best of circumstances. With a guy like JC, who is so powerful, who is so naturally lower body strong the way he is, I do think it gives you a little bit more margin for error, because now when he makes mistakes, he's got the backdrop of, well, when in doubt, I can always drop anchor, I can get my hands in that vice grip on somebody, and I could turn this into a wrestling match. Then more often than not, I'm going to win. And so I do think having that kind of incredible natural strength and ability does help soften some of the edges in making that transition, that for guys that are lesser athletes or maybe lesser talented, it becomes a bit more difficult process to try and make that switch.
Mike, we have advocated this morning for defense with the Titans' first pick at number 38, but let's say for the sake of discussion, they double up on tackles and look at a right tackle here on day 2. I know there's another former Notre Dame guy in there, and Blake Fisher, who is projected as a second, third, fourth round talent. You got Patrick Paul out of Houston. Where is their value at right tackle and someone you like moving forward into tonight's festivities?
Man, I've been beating the Blake Fisher drum for so long, and I understand he's a very different player than Joe Alt, his counterpart, but came in with a lot of fanfare at Notre Dame. I remember going to practices when he was a freshman, hearing all about this kid from Avon, Indiana, and how great he was going to be. And it took him a little while because Blake is kind of like we talked about with JC, much more physically gifted, I think explosive athlete than Joe. You watch. He moves people off the ball in that Notre Dame tape in ways that are just uncommon. His lower body power is insane. And over the last couple of years, he really started to trust his punch a lot more. He's a guy, when you see him matched up with edge defenders, not as long, not as tall, not as physically gifted as Joe Alt, who's an absolute mountain of a man, but he can kind of mitigate some of that by stinging a defender with that punch and really trusting that. So I look at him and say that's someone that maybe it didn't turn out as well as we all hoped in South Bend, but I think that's a player whose best football is still ahead of him. And second and third day, the value you get out of a Blake Fisher, who I think can become a really competent NFL starter, would be damn impressive.
Mike Golic Jr. with us this morning. Mike, how shocked were you? Because I lost my voice, everything, when the Atlanta Falcons picked Michael Penix Jr. No disrespect to him, but I just didn't have that on my bingo card at all.
I was stunned. And, I mean, we've seen this stuff now about how Kirk Cousins and his camp are like they didn't get this communicated, and what are you owed as a veteran player, especially one that they give $100 million guaranteed to over the next couple of years. I was stunned like everybody else here because I understand the thought process of, hey, this is the Green Bay Packers formula that we've now seen succeed again, where you try and get out ahead of your quarterback need and not be reactive and wind up like a team like the Denver Broncos that's having to kind of scramble at the middle of the first round to take their quarterback. But to back up the quarterback coming off an Achilles, who's an older player that you just brought in for all that money, and Kirk Cousins, with a quarterback who's 24 years old coming out of college right now, who has the injury rap sheet, has avoided it the last couple of years, but it's still there in the scouting report for here. And to hear then Terry Fontenot, the GM, say, yeah, hey, best case scenario, he gets to sit for 4 years because we're so stocked at this position. So now you lose out on the rookie contract value, and he's 28 before he's taking his first meaningful NFL snaps in that scenario. That's a bit of a head-scratcher for a team that looked like it was poised to compete right now in the NFC South after that Kirk Cousins acquisition.
Mike Golic Jr. joining us on RKW. Speaking of another quarterback, a 6 taken in the first round last night. Sean Payton getting Bo Nix, and you said, this is definitely a big-time reach. There's no other way to explain it, and you're right. What exactly, though, do they feel like they're getting in Bo Nix that he could possibly be their guy moving forward?
I'd say accuracy, coachability, and aptitude. Like, this is a guy, 61 starts in college, just absurd. Set the completions percentage record last year for a single season in the NCAA. And we saw him get better every year. Like, that's been the story for Jaden Daniels that's been told this offseason is, hey, look at the improvement to go along with much more gifts physically for Jaden Daniels. But for Bo Nix, we all remember early in his career with Auburn, he got announced to the big stage early. They've got that marquee game against Justin Herbert in Oregon. And from then on, we sort of rode the wave where there was good Bo Nix and there was bad Bo Nix. And then he went to Oregon, and a funny thing happened. He linked up with Kenny Dillingham, who's at Arizona State now, and a lot more of the good started to show up. They weaponized Bo Nix in a way that made him a really potent college quarterback. And so while there's some concern high end about the arm strength there overall and him operating in structure that mirrors more NFL concepts, this is a guy that every step of the way has digested new playbooks and has found the way to get the best out of himself at those stops and with those opportunities.
Mike Golic Jr. crushing it as always. Gojo and Golic, a must-listen 7 to 9 Central on the DraftKings Network on social media. Check out the podcast. Mike, we always appreciate you. Thank you.
Definitely.
Always great talking beef with you guys. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the draft.
We will.
Thanks.
I love it. There's Mike Golic Jr. with us here this morning.
Love that conversation with him, man.
People mover.
People
Yeah.
mover. And he also used, Mike likes that word, meat hooks. Love meat
hooks. I'm like visualizing that right now.
New band name, Meat Hook.
Yeah. There we go.
With musical guest, Meat Hook.
Playing at Bonnaroo this year, aren't they?
Probably.
Yes, they are probably.
Yeah, now that we are through draft
We'll do
season,
that game later.
We'll keep rolling with the Preds, hopefully through a long playoff
Yeah.
run. But Bonnaroo band names, real or fake, get a
Can't
day
wait.
closer every day you wake up in the morning.
Can't wait to see at stage 3 big guy mover.
Big guy mover.
That's right.
Absolutely. Squat 900-pound mover. How about that one?
Yeah, so I just saw that from Cole Kublik from our sister station in Birmingham, of course, SEC Network, said on September 2nd, 2023, Alabama tackle JC Latham benched 505 pounds for 2 reps. For 2 reps.
That's tough.
And he squatted 900 pounds with resistance bands on the bar. Goodness sakes.
The heaviest,
That's insane.
the strongest lower body guy I ever ran across is VFL Jock McClendon. I think in the summertime, I hit, I don't want to lie, it was over 595 or like, it was maybe at 6.
You squatted?
Yeah, that's what I did.
You squatted 600? Yeah.
Yeah, Jock came in and did, I think, like 790. To hear about that on campus and to, Johnny Long was our strength and conditioning coach. Just like nobody could touch Jock McClendon.
And when the bar starts bending, you know, things are going down.
They said with resistance, too?
With resistance bands, he squatted 900 pounds. How much did you bench?
My bench, I think the best I ever did, I might have tapped 475.
Goodness sakes.
475. And it was, dude, of course, short arm, dude. It was,
I just put a little bit on the bar.
But to see that bar, I don't know. I don't think y'all understand like how much that is for a person that doesn't power lift.
Right.
This dude is actually like an athlete. He doesn't just sit around and lift. And that ball comes down and hits your chest and just wobbles. And then you got to push it up.
I'm not going to tell you what I benched. 615-737-1045 is our
Ramon just
number.
casually putting 10 plates on the bar to bench is insane.
Can you do that now?
Heck no, Kayla.
Okay, just wanted to know.
We knew the answer.
Catch me at my gym, all
wanted to
right?
know.
I told you, I used to hit dumbbells starting with like 120s. Now we at the 30s and 50s. You feel me?
We're doing stuff like calisthenics.
Come work out with me
The
anytime.
hit training.
We lifting for life,
You're
baby.
playing splash in the shallow end of the pool compared to JC Latham.
I am. And I ain't afraid to say it.
Not really an athlete.
Some people just built different, man.
Coming up, what Mike Keith had to say about trade back scenarios when the Titans get on the board tonight. That's next.
It's Ramon Foster here for Secure Lawn, and I'm here to tell you, man, they want to focus on providing a prime service to their customer base, all right? From Williamson County to Wilson to Sumner to Robertson, all of Middle Tennessee, that's where they want to go, all right? But you're probably asking, Ramon, what does prime mean, all right? Well, it means having their team properly trained and prepared to provide a prime service supplying their customers with the expectations that make them lifelong customers. They're local, have been servicing Middle Tennessee for over 20 years, punctual, and the best best part about them is you sign no contracts. So as the weather has started to change, you probably want to get them over right now to get you set up for the summer and the rest of the fall season. Get Secure Lawn over to your house to spray some of their awesome sauce on your lawn to kill some of those pesky weeds. And this doesn't bother the person that cuts your yard. Absolutely not. This is for those weeds to keep it green, thick, and lush, all right? Call them at 615-893-8455 and go online at securelawn.com.
Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, with us earlier this morning talking about the Titans on a brand new draft that begins tonight. Having the 6th pick, you got options. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, I'm Will Bowling. Thank you for making us your option this morning, if you're hearing the sound of my voice right now. And if you missed any of our conversations with Brent Hubbs of VolQuest, with Mike Keith in hour 2, and just a few minutes ago with Mike Golic Jr., that's 3 different perspectives on JC Latham and the draft last night, from someone who knew JC Latham when he was 18 out of IMG Academy, from Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, the Vaught, who, I mean, you know the kind of cred the Vaught has.
Yep.
And for Mike Golic Jr., an offensive lineman, as another big guy. Breaking it down, we gave you 3 different perspectives on the newest Tennessee Titans.
And nobody cried.
No.
We made it
Speak
through.
for yourself.
It's exciting. We get to see him in the flesh today. So we'll be down at the Titans facility meeting JC for the first time. He's going to fly in.
Mike Keith posted a video of him loading the jet right
Nice.
now.
Love
be
it.
fun.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Who do you want today? Who's top of your list? I know we talked about Junior Colson, Edgerrin Cooper. What do you think happens? Not necessarily your top choice. If you're predicting it at 38, what do you think they do?
My predictions have all been wrong. So whatever I say, it will be
welcome
opposite.
to the draft. Yeah.
I know,
I know.
right.
So I'll say this. In the interest of drafting a wide receiver at that 7 position, where you had Rome Odunze available, and Brian Callahan specifically said there's stuff we did in free agency, specifically signing Calvin Ridley, that made us feel comfortable at that spot. But now you wonder, do they want some depth? Do they want a specific slot guy? If you go offense. So you've got a Roman Wilson there. You've got a Ladd McConkey, which I think we all agree on this show would be a really good fit here. Played at Georgia, played at the highest level. So I'll throw that out and say that could be a possibility. And in that terms, they'll go opposite.
So you're 6 deep in the 2nd round at pick 32. So you got to figure out what's there. I don't think Chargers can go all line again. My crush, I'm gonna go with my crush. Screw it, Will. Cooper DeJean.
Okay.
We talk about safety help. We're talking about shoring up this defense to where you can get some run support around the outside of it. He's the guy that's done well with punt returns, kick returns, special teams. You get more than a player. He can play corner. He can play nickel. He can play safety. Give me young Coop.
Okay. I like it. I really like it. If he is still there at 38, I think that is an A-plus pick. I really do. I was just reading Pro Football Focus in their day 2 mock draft with who is available. They do have him available at 38. They have the Titans taking Texas A&M inside linebacker Edgerrin Cooper.
Okay.
With the 38th pick.
Okay.
Which, just a little different from Junior Colson, right? He's more of an athletic specimen, more of your side-to-side guy, more of a Patrick Queen, a guy that's quick, moves around. He's going to make mistakes, but he's going to make mistakes at 100 miles an hour.
And Denard Wilson, coming from Baltimore with the experience of being on a defensive staff that coached Patrick Queen, would make sense. I really think they might go with Junior Colson.
If he's there.
I really do. What do we know about the Titans' type? We know they love big school guys who are team captains who played in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Junior Colson checks all of those boxes. I think he checks the high IQ inside linebacker, wear the green dot box. A lot of what you hear, and I will say that a lot of what I have heard is that the interest in T'Vondre Sweat is very real for the Titans.
Yeah.
On the defensive line. I think that is an option as well. I don't know about at 38. I also don't know what the conversations have been like with T'Vondre Sweat offline.
And Mike Keith brought that up too today.
Right. About
personalities.
The off-field concerns with him. What was his answer? Did he look you in the eye when he answered you?
Sure.
Answered your questions about some of the stuff that's gone on off the field with him. I'm not privy to that, so I just don't know. But I do think that if he starts to fall, that is a guy you could package a couple picks for to move up to get as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's going to be there when you're on the board in the 4th round. Do you package together a 4th and another one next year or this year to move into the 3rd, late in the 3rd to get him if he's there? We'll see. But I think they go defense. I'm pretty confident they go defense, and we're exactly 24 hours away from me saying I'm confident Joe Alt will be available. So, Lad McConkey, you're going to look great in two-tone blue.
You got to, sorry, Kayla.
No, that's why I said offense, because
Right.
I want him to go defense.
Yeah.
Do the opposite.
You got to switch it up. You got to wonder if the Chargers are going to ruin the Titans' night 2 rounds in a row, picking right in front of them. They also need a middle linebacker. And who knows the Michigan linebacker is better than anyone? Jim Harbaugh. You got to cross your fingers tonight that the Chargers do not have a vendetta.
And at that point, I do think Edgerrin Cooper would be the pick, because then I think the run on linebackers starts. I think that's the thing to watch. Who's picked right in front of the Titans? And do the Titans join a run-on defensive linemen, edge rushers, inside linebackers? I think it's one of those three, and the Titans are in on that run at 30.
Real quick, just other than Atlanta, anybody, and there will be some failures in this first round. Anybody you feel like lost last night in general?
I still feel like Denver took Bo Nix too
Denver,
high.
100%.
I really do.
I totally agree.
Denver, Atlanta, questionable.
I'm not a Bo Nix believer.
Okay.
That's the show. That's the week. Enjoy the NFL draft this weekend. Listen all day as we continue to lead you straight up to day 2 coverage on Titans Radio. Ramon Foster will be there. Brent Hubbs will be there. Mike Keith, of course, the entire Titans Radio crew. Excited for that. Full reaction Monday morning. Ramon, send us home.
Hey, free agents sign soon after the draft. Okay, that's my class right there. All right, but at all times.
The 8th round.
The 8th round. Your Twitter fingers and your mic is always hot.